Hey everyone, welcome to HR Summer School, day number 2.
And I'm excited to be with someone like you.
Oh.
You got to keep it going. It's like a spoken word type deal. Opening the
have nothing to contribute
classroom.
Here. Yes.
Oh, if you just talk me and I'll rhyme the end of it.
You'll just rhyme. No pressure, George.
No pressure at all. Hey, welcome everybody to day 2. And then I left yesterday, grabbed some dinner with one of the basketball coaches that used to coach at a Christian basketball school here. Had dinner last night, sporadic invite. And we were talking about my day, and I was like, I got the opportunity and a blessing to hang out with so many people. And there's like, what is it like? And you know what I did? I just pulled up LinkedIn and I said, hey, I haven't checked my notifications. Just go ahead and check and see and just by reading the message, and this is a blessing and a testament to all of you who are watching. People simply reading your messages that you're posting, the comments that you're sharing, that you're tagging HR Summer School. So just by hashtagging HR Summer School, we were able to go through and read a lot of those. And they were like, man, I feel like I was there. How do I get a part of that? And so 2 new people are joining us this morning, part of HR Summer School, because of all of our great students, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, and our 5th-year students as well.
Did you? I don't think you didn't. So George doesn't go through the sign-up process like all of you do, but I actually put freshman, sophomore, all the way to the senior, and I put OG. So like if you were here or the first year with us, you're officially in that group. There we go.
All right.
George. I was trying to figure out if I could finish a sentence with silver or orange or purple, because there's no words that rhyme with either of those, any of those, and I couldn't really quickly. So, all right, I'm going to give y'all the quick set of announcements and things like that to get us going through the day. So, again, welcome, day 2. Same as yesterday, our quick announcements are, right, stay engaged, participate. We're going to give some things away. We did yesterday. We'll do it today, continue on through. So lots of giveaways and things coming, and we'll share some of the recaps that many of you posted yesterday shortly, because we love seeing all of your takeaways and things. We get our own learnings from this, but we love seeing the encouragement from all of you as well. Because when you share, it's not just like a pat on the back for us. You're telling all of your circle the good things that they can get from this and the benefits you got from it, all of those kind of things. And it's a rising tide lifts all ships, essentially. Some people have asked me about SHRM and HRCI credits. Those are applied for the entire event. So I need you to watch all 3 days in order to get your credits, and we'll send the codes after the 3rd day is done. So you don't get it day by day. You don't get it session by session. We put it all together as one piece, 7.5 total credits. And then live stream times. We were kind of close yesterday. George and I sometimes get a little bit too excited between sessions, but we kept it pretty close yesterday, finished right on time. So we'll try to do the same thing today. You want to give some things away?
I am all about giving things away.
All right.
Except shoes.
Except shoes.
Limited on those.
I did notice there was an extra pair of shoes in the room that's not on your feet in case you feel led to share those today. So those may end up coming up at some point. Who knows? So a couple of you that we want to give a shout out to, that we saw some of your posts about the event, some of your recaps, your ideas, the things that you learned from this, and your encouragement to everybody else, like what you found valuable and what you think others would get from this. This is not all inclusive. This is not exhaustive. I couldn't have fit all of you on a whole slide deck, much less one slide itself here to share these, but we want to give you a couple quick shout outs. If you are featured here on the page, so Kamasha, Tiffany, Kristen, Paige, Misha, and Hannah, you're all on our list for prizes in just a little while. And Hannah, I told you your little caterpillar drawing thing made me smile big. So you may get something extra. Who knows? So you'll be getting some prizes in a little bit when we do that. Thank you to all of you. Keep doing it. Keep sharing your big findings and learnings and all that good stuff. George loves the takeaways, especially when you mention one of his acronyms. That's like the highlight of his life. So give him that little bit of acknowledgement.
I'm able to take that home with me and show that my kid somebody pays attention to me and encourages him to listen because a stranger does, so it's great.
There we go.
But I'm excited about our sponsors too, Ben. I'm so grateful for all the opportunities that they help provide. Without them, this is not possible on the scale that we do. So we want to thank all of our sponsors who are part of HR Summer School 2024. Yes. And, sometimes I feel like we're getting some OG sponsors.
Yeah,
so maybe that's something can happen.
Absolutely, for sure. So today we'll hear from Zayzoon, we'll hear from Tate over there, and then we'll hear from a customer of Goody about how they're working with them and what they're getting there. So we'll hear some good stuff today on those. So stay tuned. We'll get that. And then I get the pleasure of telling about something fun coming up. So George Rogers is going to be at SHRM in Chicago in just a few short weeks. if you're going to be there and you would like to say hello to George in person, he may have some stuff to give away. Who knows? If you want to see George in person, you want to say hello. Our friends over at iSolved who are supporting summer school anyway, we said, hey, if you're going to be there, let's do this. So they put together a special meetup that's going to happen there on site, easy to get to. It's going to be there on location at the conference center. And so you can sign up at that link there on screen. We'll put that in the chat in a little while in case you can't grab that right now. But if you're going to be at SHRM, you want to say hello there. George plus iSolved is like a party. So you're going to have a blast, lots of energy, lots of excitement. Their team's amazing. George is sort of okay. So
I'm learning. I'll learn from iSolved. I'll figure out how to solve this amazing thing together with him.
So there's some good stuff coming. And if you're going to be on site at SHRM, that will be your great chance to meet with George and say hello.
It'd be awesome. It'd be awesome. Well, yesterday I had the opportunity to chat and open up HR Summer School. And for y'all that may not know, Ben and I get the opportunity year round to travel all over. He's Mr. Worldwide. I'm just statewide. But we get the opportunity to travel and share our stories, our passions. I spoke a little bit about peace yesterday in a short base. So we get to champion our purpose and speak on things that we're passionate about. If you want to know more about AI, talent acquisition, recruiting, or just anything HR related with cool pictures that makes you wonder, what is this going to be about? Ben is definitely the guy to bring that energy and passion to your event. So if you're an event coordinator or planning something for your company and you want a speaker, Ben is such a great influence in the area. And I'm going to move out of the way because I'm excited. I hope there's some data, but if not, we'll see.
You know what? I might surprise you and not do data today. We'll see. We'll see.
Man.
We'll find out.
Better have some good shoes.
All right. So George gave me the shout out. Yesterday, I neglected to give him the shout out, but he does a tremendous amount of speaking at events. He actually had the chance to MC the Unleash event in Las Vegas last month. Our whole team was there, and he got to speak with Magic Johnson, the legend, on stage, and it was so much fun. And George is just that incredible kind of talent. So if you are looking for someone with some energy, all that excitement, he brings that and more. So he does that and delivers that great talk. So today I want to take just a couple minutes. I've got a few minutes to share with you. And one of the talks that I've been doing lately is around the reasons that HR has a bright future. The one thing I want you to get, if you get nothing else in the next few minutes of me sharing, the one thing I want you to get is the demand for high quality, passionate, and well-developed HR professionals has never been higher. I'll say that again for those of you in the back. The demand for high quality, passionate, and well-developed HR practitioners has never been higher. Companies are looking for great people. They're looking for high quality HR team members. And I'm going to give you really quickly, and I mean quickly, the 5 key things that tie in there. I delivered this talk a few weeks ago at Alabama SHRM as their opening keynote to just give some excitement, some inspiration to that audience. And I'm going to give you the quick snippets there just to highlight those for you. So the number one reason that there's a bright future for all of us in HR is that we are in the one-size-fits-one environment at work. It is the personalized era of work. I'm wearing my new summer school shirt. It just arrived, brand new summer school shirt. And it says one-size-fits-one because the work we do, says this isn't about trying to do one thing that meets everybody's needs, because we know that's not going to work. We have to address the unique needs for people. I think about the time we had an employee. They had started with us on a Friday. The very next day, a tornado came through and blew their house over. Complete surprise to everybody. And that message, that lesson that I learned there was there's no standard operating procedure. There's no HR policy for your house gets blown over by a tornado. We had to find a way to address that one person's need in the moment. And that happens across our entire workforce, not necessarily something that dramatic, but we have to find ways to address those needs. Number 2 on this list for why HR has a bright future is that managers need more support than ever, and we are ideally positioned to help them out. One of the best ways we can do that isn't just by telling them what to do or giving them more coaching or giving them more templates and advice and resources, but finding those that are doing a great job and celebrating and elevating their stories. How do we find a great leader like a George in our workforce and tell their stories to other managers, see that and know what we're expecting? They know what good looks like and they know what we're hoping for them to provide. So the managers need help and we are right there positioned. Number 3 on that list, organizational change comes down to, or organizational agility, the ability to compete in the marketplace for our companies, not just for us as an HR function, but for the company, comes down to people and change. And we are the experts in both of those things. Those are our superpowers. One of the things that stuck out to me in some of our brand new research, to George's credit here, I'll throw the stat at you. The number one reason employees told us that they learn at work, this scares me to even say it, is because someone made them do it. The number one reason they're learning is because it's mandatory, it's required, it's compliance focused. It's not because I was excited about building a skill. I was excited about moving up in my career. All of you are here today, not because someone made you, but because you want to be better, you want to do better, you want to serve your people better. Organizational change is a massive, massive priority for companies, and those are our superpowers. That's where we plug in there and add value. Number 4 on this list for why HR is in higher demand than ever before is that when you look at any number of the CEO surveys in the last 2 or 3 years, the number one thing at the top of that is talent. We need to find skills. We need to retain key people. We need to be able to draw them in. And those leaders are thinking about and worried about that. So they're struggling there. So if you know the business, you know how it makes money, you know the differentiators and how you compete against the other market competition out there, that sets you up for success. I was telling this group of HR leaders the other day, like, listen, if you can do that a little bit, you'll be a market leader, right? Or you'll be competitive. If you can do that really well, you'll be a market leader, because this isn't just about, solving problems. HR puts out a lot of fires, but let's help do some fire prevention. Let's make sure that we're putting things in place that help us be more forward-thinking, forward-leaning, and proactive. And number 5, finally here on the list, the reasons that HR is in demand. AI is all the rage. Every headline out there feels like it's talking about it, but work is still a human thing. In spite of all the news and the excitement and all the hubbub, and I'm guilty of that. I get excited about some of the things AI can do, but ultimately work is a human thing. The work that we do specifically within HR, especially, is a very human thing. You know how I know that? Well, there's actually research that shows that when you look at the kind of environment it takes to train either an algorithm or train a person, you need a couple of things. Number 1, you need to know all the variables. If I'm going to teach an algorithm to do something, I have to know all the variables that are involved. How many times when you're making a decision do you know everything involved? Rarely. I need to know all the parameters, the guardrails, the outside boundaries. Again, we make decisions every day not knowing what those are. And the third thing is an algorithm needs to know it makes a decision if it's right or wrong, right there in the moment. And how many times do we make a decision and we don't know for months or years if we've made the right call? So those things all paint the picture that we work in an unkind learning environment, and that means humans are in demand. And I'm going to close with this. HR for a long time has been called a cost center. HR's been said, oh, well, that's a cost center in the business. They're just a cost. It's my argument. It's my belief that HR isn't just a cost center. It's an innovation center. We are business drivers. We are not just takers. We are givers back to the business in terms of value, in terms of what we can bring to the workforce and to the organization and to the bottom line. That's the opportunity we have to impact that in a positive way. And that's what I wanted to share with you with a few minutes that I had this morning on the stage before we dive into our first session. So that's my encouragement to all of you. We are in higher demand than ever before. Keep developing yourself, keep that passion high, and step up, lead well, all that good stuff. How's that, George?
That was great. I'm in the chat, and I want to say this: if you enjoyed that 5-6 minutes, I think he actually spoke longer than me, so that is great. I got something I can hang over, but that was so powerful. If you enjoyed that right now, what I want to encourage you to do, and I ask y'all to do in the chat, let's do it again. Let's give Principal Ben a round of applause. Give some likes up there, some hearts. That encourages him to say, hey, this is relevant. This is something that's touching your heart. So if that made an impact on you, and I love that last quote, it's not a call center. It's an innovation. And you are innovators. You're impacting the business. You're driving the business. You're helping the business be sustainable because of your relationship and connection. That, my friend, was great. It's a great way to open up.
Woo. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you to all of you. I'm seeing all the high fives and everything virtually here. I even did the thing with Jason yesterday. Bucket list. I gave myself a thumbs up or a thumbs up. There we go.
I'm over here. I'm kind of, I don't know if this is a surfer dude type deal. Something I always like.
Right on. Okay. So we're going to dive right into our first conversation today. We've got an incredible agenda for you today. I'm going to go ahead and kick off our very first conversation with EEOC Commissioner Keith Sonderling. He is an incredible speaker. He's an incredible expert on what it takes for us to support our people in a fair and compliant sort of way. And I hope you get some good takeaways from his conversation about how we can enable our managers to be respectful of some of the changes that are happening out there and to make some good positive support for our people. So let's go ahead and dive in with Commissioner Sonderling. I know you've had a great time at summer school so far, getting a lot of good ideas, a lot of insights, a lot of encouragement as well. I am so excited about our next guest here, Commissioner Keith Sonderling from the EEOC. He's going to be talking to us about some of the work that they're doing, some of the priorities that they're watching as an agency, and some of the things that he thinks all of us should know as an HR community. So Keith, welcome. Glad to have you.
Ben, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the great work you do to make sure that the profession of HR is always compliant with all the laws and regulations. And I say that from Washington, D.C. It's very important putting on this summer school. Everyone here today to learn a lot. I really appreciate your interest.
Well, thank you so much. Hey, I appreciate you for putting a face to a lot of the other things that we see as policy and everything else, and really being a chance for us to understand some of those things and not just have to read it on a website somewhere maybe, but get a chance to interact with somebody who could give us some more input and insight there. So just to kind of start us off a little bit, tell us who you are and what you do.
So I'm Keith Sonderling. I'm Commissioner of the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And I know most of you in HR know about the EEOC, but not generally in the best light. Oh, we got a charge of discrimination. We're in trouble. The lawyers are going to get involved. So when I got to the EEOC, we are the regulators of HR. Our mission is very similar to yours, to prevent and remedy employment discrimination and promote equal employment opportunity in the workplace. So I made it my mission, since I've been a commissioner at the EEOC, to get out and stop talking to lawyers, stop talking to lobbyists in DC, and talk to you all as HR professionals directly, because at the end of the day, you are going to be the ones that have to deal with these issues. So Ben, thank you for helping me bridge that gap. So we deal here at the EEOC, again, everything you're dealing with, from the big ticket items like DE&I, pay equity, the Me Too movement, all types of discrimination. That's our mission here. And we're in a very good perspective here in Washington, D.C. to see what all the claims and trends are in the United States when it comes to employment law, employment discrimination. And so that's really what I want to discuss, and saying, here's where we are, here's where we're going.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect sort of segue there. So let's talk about that a little bit. What's top of mind for you right now? Again, you have this perspective across the entire nation and what the big themes, big trends are. What sort of things are top of mind for you right now?
Well, it's very tough from the same position you are in HR for us at the EEOC. And once we try to focus on something, generally the news will shift us in different directions. So if you think about where we were in around 2012, starting to dive into some of the longstanding issues with age discrimination in the workplace, then the Me Too movement happened, and we had to focus all of our resources on preventing sexual harassment, even though sexual harassment has been unlawful since the 1960s. And then the women's soccer team made news, and then a shift was on pay equity. Then COVID happened, and the shift was on accommodations and vaccines. So very much like all of you, we have to shift our efforts to where things are going. But what we're seeing is trends in employment discrimination year after year. The number one claim of employment discrimination facing the American workforce is retaliation. And retaliation was 56% of all the charges of discrimination that came to the EEOC. And this is really because a lot of times employees will come and they'll complain to their manager. I feel like I'm being discriminated against. I feel like I'm not being paid fairly. And sometimes they say, well, you are, and now you're fired, or you're getting a demotion. And obviously that is unlawful. You can't do that. Employees need to be able to express if they feel like they're getting discriminated or not. So that continues to plague corporations around the United States, and not necessarily saying HR departments are doing that, but maybe an untrained manager may then retaliate off being accused of sexually harassing and then maybe trying to change their work conditions. So that's been a persistent issue, but that's generally a tag on claim. So putting that aside, the number one issue in facing all of you is disability and disability discrimination. And that continues to be the number one underlying cause of discrimination in the United States. And here's the big issue that I really want to bring to light today. The type of disability discrimination we're seeing is changing drastically. When you think about disability discrimination in the workforce, what do you think about? Accommodations for workers with physical disabilities, with health conditions, engaging in that interactive process, maybe getting them changing their work hours if they need to see a doctor, or if they're physically disabled, getting them adaptive keyboard, or making sure that their workspace is a combination. But since the pandemic, we've seen a really big shift in the type of claims, and that's related to mental health. And that's really what I want to focus on today is one of the top issues facing HR departments is how are you going to deal with your employees' mental health claims? And last year, we saw mental health claims be almost 30% of all ADA claims filed. So think about that. Every type of disability, every type of medical ailment, and we're seeing mental health increase to more than a third of those. And what do we define mental health as the EEOC? Anxiety, depression, PTSD, schizophrenia, cumulative trauma disorder, and other mental health issues, kind of a catch-all. Yes. And we're seeing those increase year after year. And we're also seeing the monetary value of these claims increase year after year. And this is really what I've been trying to focus on this year is that how are HR departments going to be empowered to deal with these mental health claims? And how are HR departments now need to learn how to accommodate workers with anxiety, depression, PTSD, or other types of mental health ailments as they know how to do with physical disabilities and medical issues. So that's really where our focus is this year. And we could talk about some of the drivers of why that's happening.
Yeah, the thing that sticks to me is if you ask anyone out there listening right now, like, hey, would you want to take care of your employees with a disability? Absolutely, yes. That's the answer for every single person.
Non-controversial.
Right, yes. But like when someone shows up and they're pregnant, someone is in a wheelchair, someone's got something physical, you're like, hey, I know they need some help. Let's start the dialogue here, right? This needs to be a conversation. But you don't see the physical manifestation typically of some sort of mental health issues. That makes it hard to pinpoint and know where that is. So yes, absolutely. Take us farther down that path. Talk about some of the things that you're seeing there, some of the things that employers are doing, because I can imagine that people hearing that are like me, like, wow, that's a huge increase. And it's something that we need to help address.
Yeah. And it's different, as you said, if somebody has a specific heart condition, right? Or if somebody is missing a limb, through the Job Accommodation Network, or just through your practice as HR professionals. There's so many resources of how to find an accommodation for that specific ailment. But with mental health, it's so individualized and it's so different. So you and I, Ben, can have the same type of anxiety, but what our doctors may require to be able to have us work may be completely different accommodations. And that's really where the sticking point is. And the other really, where this is all coming to a head is related to return to work. And if I would say, well, why is this happening? Well, there's a few different reasons. One, I think a lot of people are more open about their mental health. Organizations have been much more open to ensuring employees have the employee assistance programs and a lot of resources to deal with their mental health at work. CEOs, executives have been more open about this. Gen Z, as we know, which we'll talk about in a moment, are more open to talking about these issues as well. But let's talk about the return to work mandates. And if you take a step back, then there's never really been a right to work from home. Think pre-pandemic, right? If you didn't come to the office 5 days a week, if you didn't show up on a Monday and Friday, what would happen? You'd be fired, right? I mean, that's it. I mean, or if you would say, well, I don't want to have to commute into the office, any of these issues, well, figure it out. But since the pandemic and a lot of these very strong return to office policies that corporations across the globe are facing, where there's a big push to return to pre-pandemic life instantly, coming back 3 days a week, 5 days a week, we're seeing for the first time now that these programs, and you've seen read the reports I have, C-level executives, very famous CEOs are saying, if you're not coming back to the office, you're never going to succeed. All these threats out there. And what it's doing, it's putting a lot of strain on HR departments. Because now all of you in HR, if you're being judged by your bosses of how quickly you can get everyone back to pre-COVID life, you may not go through some of these processes that you normally would have to if those are the pressures you're cutting. And what we're seeing now is employees are getting a federally protected right to work from home because they're leading with their mental health. So now with these return to office policies, we're saying, well, I can't come back to the office because I have an anxiety about riding the subway into the office because of getting the next strand or because of crime in cities, right? So you're all these different things that you've never seen before. Or I have depression thinking about returning to post-COVID life and having to hang out at the water cooler with my colleagues after I've been working at home in my basement and we've had record profits and everything's been good. I've just changed the way I worked and now you're just suddenly and drastically making me go back into how things were. And that's really causing a strain on your employees' mental health. So now employees are coming and say, well, I can't come back to the office because I'm disabled under the ADA And that's related to my mental health. And that's new. That's something we really haven't seen before. And what I'm encouraging HR departments to do is you have to take that seriously. Even if you think they may be saying this just because they don't want to come back to the office. And we'll talk about how really the only cure for a lot of employees is just working remotely. You have to engage in that process. And you have to say, well, okay, so you're saying you have depression about coming back in the office, or you have anxiety about your commute, or you have anxiety about being around your colleagues nonstop. Well, what is the diagnosis and what are the accommodations? And here's where the EEOC has put out guidance. There's really good guidance from the Job Accommodation Network, which a lot of HR professionals know about through the Department of Labor. Once you go through that process and how mental health is just the types of mental health disorders are so different, the accommodations are going to be different. And the accommodation may not always be working from home. We have guidance saying, well, depending on the type of anxiety, maybe noise canceling headphones, maybe working in a dim light situation, maybe working alternate hours or in a different part of the office to deal with that mental health condition. So my plea here is, as you're getting so many mandates to return to the office, as you think that employees are just going to potentially use this to not come back in the office, you are still have to be empowered as HR professionals and go through that process, no matter what kind of pressure you're getting from your own bosses to get everyone back. Because if you don't go through that process, you have no defense. It's over. You're going to be liable for not engaging that process. And the fear of engaging in that process because you think the employee is going to win because they're going to get the accommodation they want, that's not necessarily true. All you have to do is a reasonable accommodation in light of that, claim that they're bringing. So that's really, I think, where a lot of companies right now are going to have significant liability related to the return to office equation. It's just the fear of engaging in that process, or just thinking that the employees are always going to get to work from home. And that's just not true.
I think about it in terms, I'm a runner. And so I think about that in terms of like, you'll never finish a race you didn't start. And so if employers don't engage in that process, they'll always still be at the starting line. They'll be stuck there because they're not actually trying to have that conversation, lead that employee through that, work with them to find some sort of common ground, sort of reasonable level of accommodation in that. You mentioned Gen Z a minute ago. Was there something else that you want to tap on?
Oh, yes, of course. I know, Ben, you're looking a lot into this as well. And the other issue is the dynamics of the workforce with Gen Z and the way Gen Z workers are working. There's been a lot of studies about that, more about how they're talking about their mental health. And with the generational differences in the workforce, we're seeing that Gen Z worker, there's studies out there showing that Gen Z workers are much more open about their mental health, needing mental health days off, or just essentially saying, well, like, look, this is the way you operate. And this is giving me anxiety. This is giving me fear. And I can't operate in this manner. I can't work till 9, 10 o'clock at night, right? Which, as in all professions, younger workers generally have to cut their teeth and are working on weekends, working after hours in a lot of knowledge worker positions. And just the way that most of the bosses understand how the workforce works, we're seeing Gen Z saying, well, I can't, and there is a story written about this, that it's one of these stories that who knows it's true or not, that a Gen Z worker are basically saying, well, I don't want to have my performance review because I have anxiety that I'm going to get a bad review. I mean, and for most managers, that's unheard of, right? And quickly, as different generations may want to laugh and say, well, here you go, here's another assignment, or I can't take more than one assignment at once because it's too much on my mental health. And we're saying, well, okay, here's 3 assignments, right? Because this is how you learn. That can potentially get you in trouble. Not saying that the employee doesn't have to do 3 assignments at once. Not saying that an employee can say, well, because of their mental health, they don't have to have a performance review. Obviously, those are pretty essential to the job. But if you're not at least engaging that process and saying, okay, well, how are we going to be able, you're claiming you have a disability related to your mental health. How are we going to be able to accommodate you related to that and be able to still perform the essential functions of your job, which is maybe working late, doing more than one assignment, having a performance reviews in light of that disability you're claiming? And that is just so foreign to a lot of more senior workers who have just grew up a different way, that again, if you just laugh that off, right, and just call them crazy or just say that's nonsense, right, get to work, you're going to have a claim there. Again, just not engaging that process. So you see, it's very repetitive, Ben, and it's very simple. And it's very much what you all know as HR professionals. Slow the process down. As ridiculous as you think these claims may be, if you don't engage in those processes, you won't even be able to then, you can't win as an HR professional doing your job I'm not saying, oh, it's a win or loss equation. Under the law, you have a duty to engage in these conversations. But if you're not engaging in these conversations because you think you don't understand the generational differences, or you don't understand your employees' mental health concerns, you're going to be liable to the EEOC for not engaging that process, and you won't have any defense. So that's what I'm saying. I'm encouraging HR departments to do what you do best. And that's engage with the managers, engage with the employees, come to a consensus. And if the employee says, well, I don't want this, I don't want to do 2 assignments, or I don't want to come into the office, even if you're giving them accommodation that works with their mental health condition, that's your obligation. That's it. That's all you have to do. And that's what I'm seeing now, is that there's a fear of just engaging in those processes, and we can't have that.
So I'm hearing in this, like, as you're sharing this, I'm thinking back to my own training as an HR practitioner. I'm thinking the people probably listening here that have had that same sort of training, like, they're pretty comfortable having that conversation, but we need to make sure our managers are equipped to have those conversations, because we're not in every one of those discussions. They're the tip of the spear, essentially. And so if this comes up and they're like, yeah, get back to work, they've just shut that door on our behalf as an employer. They have not taken that opportunity to do that.
You read my mind. That's exactly where I was going to go. And here's what I need you as all as HR professionals to do, because Ben's right, you're not going to be in those meetings. And let's take a situation which is very real right now. A team has to come back to the office 5 days a week, right? Just say a team of 5 people. And they go back to the office, and 4 of them come back, and 1 person gets to work from home. And they're all sitting on Zoom or Teams doing their work. And 4 of the employees go to the manager and say, this is nonsense. We're all in the office just sitting on Teams, and Ben gets to work from home. We're doing the same exact job. We want to work from home. Why? That's not fair. And if the managers are not trained, the manager may say, well, Ben's crazy now, and he just got some excuse to work from home, and it's not fair. I don't want to be here either as the manager, right? That's a very real life situation by an untrained business manager. And that's where HR needs to really make sure that this whole mental health discussion is going down the line. Because what that manager should say is that this company has policies and procedures relating to requesting to an accommodation related to work from home. I can't discuss other employees' discussions with HR or any requests they've made. If you feel like you need an accommodation, you need to go to HR. But as you all know, in large organizations or small organizations, when you're out in the field, are those conversations going to be happening? Or is that manager going to be equally as bitter that they're sitting on Teams when they can be home too? So you see, that's a wonderful point you just bring up, Ben. It's so much more than HR. And as we enter this new dynamic with the new workforce, with mental health coming up, with Gen Z in the workforce, with a lot of these very modern issues, the training that HR professionals need to do needs to be across the organization. And all of you as HR professionals need buy-in from your bosses saying, like, look, we're going to do our job in HR. But if we don't have this institutionalized training about these new modern issues, we're going to have serious issues. So it's unique and it's modern now to these mental health issues, opposed to, again, where okay, somebody is in a wheelchair, somebody just had a heart condition in the hospital and they're recovering. Most employees are saying, like, okay, we get it. But because you can't see these disabilities. And in Europe, Ben, they're much more open about this. You see signs in airports saying, in the London airport, I saw there was a sign that says, not all, disabilities are visible, right? So it seems like other countries are really starting to make awareness of this. And that needs to happen here in the United States, because our laws are the strongest on this.
Okay, so we're getting close on our time. If someone wants to know the latest guidance, like some of the data you were sharing a minute ago on the claims, everything else, is the EEOC website the best place to find that information?
Yeah, and we have so much guidance on this. So now that I brought up this issue very specific to mental health, we could have had an hour-long conversation on age discrimination, on pay, anything you want, but we have really good guidance. But let's just stick with the mental health. We have a resource page related to mental health in the workplace, where it goes through all the different types of mental health conditions, all the different types of accommodations, how to have these conversations, how to work with their medical professionals. And it even gets into some of the more complex issues that we're dealing with, alcoholism and drug use. As post-pandemic, there's a lot of more alcoholism going on with people working from home. The opioid endemic in the country really has faced workers tough issues, especially those who are in recovery programs. So we put out very specific guidance on how to deal with this, how to deal with the employee, how to deal with their healthcare provider, that I will make sure that you get and you can distribute as part of the materials for this. And then for our statistics as well, all these statistics are public. So if you want to see very great.
All right. Looks like my last snippet of the conversation with Commissioner Sonderling got cut off there, but he was saying that they have a ton of data statistics on the EEOC website. They are public information, so any of us can see and utilize those that want to support our people. So really incredible set of insights there. And I appreciated him for sharing that, for bringing that forward, for making it part of the conversation here at Summer School as well. So thank you again, Commissioner. Grateful to know you, grateful to call you friends, and grateful for the service you're providing back to all the employers here in the community. Any takeaways or anything else that stood out for you from that?
Yeah, I think obviously with the mental health is something, research that I've been heavily on over the last year and a half, and seeing a lot of the comments and people, engaging and encouraging others to, hey, have a conversation. I want to make sure that we understand as leaders, for those who do struggle with mental health or any, matter or disability, when it comes to mental health, struggles look like a smile to a lot of people. And so in order to have that engagement, I think it's important and so vital for us to go back to how do we get engaged? How do we gain that? And I think it's through having leaders who are trustworthy, having leaders who actually care about why I'm here versus what I can do for the business, and being able to show up. And that starts with showing up for ourselves. If you're not taking care of yourselves as leaders, and this is the encouraging part I want to get back to us as people and as HR leaders, is that we got to take care of ourselves. People are watching how we take care of ourselves and or lack thereof and say, how can I trust them with my problems when they are not doing well themselves? They're not healthy. So why am I giving them my problems? And so we got to make sure that we're healthy. Healthy people, you want to be around healthy people. Hurt people, heal people will heal people. And so I want to be around people that I know that I can come to when I'm struggling. So, I trust Ben because I know that Ben takes care of himself. He shows up for himself. He also cares for others. And I see that through his actions. And so I want to encourage you, don't just expect somebody to open up. Live a life that says, you know what, I can go to you and build that trust and that connection so I can have that communication. Otherwise, people are going to just struggle within and give up outwardly.
Yeah, goodness. I'm caught on the struggle within and give up on the outside. Struggle on the inside, give on the outside, and we missed the chance to have an impact there. So great session there. And again, one of the things that I want to make sure that we share with you is we know that you are probably already doing a lot of the things you're hearing. As you heard from Commissioner Sonderling, this is about how do we get our managers alongside us to do this, help them. They're the front lines. They're the ones having most of these conversations. And we need to make sure they're equipped to do that in a positive way and compliant way, all those kind of things. So great conversation there. Okay. Tremendous. All right. I'm ready to move on. I'm so excited for our next session. So our partners over at Zayzoon do a great job helping employers, helping the workforce with financial well-being, helping employees manage their money, those kind of things. That's their focus. And so we're going to hear from Tate over at Zayzoon, some of the stuff that they're doing, how they're supporting employees, some of the data points on financial wellness, because that actually ties back into the conversation around stress and mental health. Is the data show that about 7 out of 10 households in the United States live paycheck to paycheck. And so if that's the case, they're showing up. They're not going to tell you, hey, by the way, we may lose our house because we're struggling this, or I can't even afford to pay for my kids' lunches this week. Like, they're not going to tell you those things at work, but that may be the reality your people are living. So we're going to talk about the importance of that and how to tie together some of the benefits we offer to make sure they're addressing those needs. So let's get out of the way and hear from Tate. And welcome back to another session here at Summer School. I know that you're having fun. You're taking a lot of notes, get some good ideas. And we're going to talk for a little bit, Tate and I, about things like employee financial wellness, how we can help them to be ready for their future financially and all those kind of things. And some of the things we can do as employers to help enable that. Instead of just standing here as a spectator watching it happen, be an active participant in helping them make better decisions, all that good stuff. So Tate, welcome. Glad to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate Zayzoon for sponsoring and supporting the event, for really helping to elevate this message and bring the community together. So before we get to some of the fun stuff on financial wellness and how we can support as employers, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, sure. My name's Tate Hackert, obviously. I am one of the co-founders of Zayzoon. and that's probably what I'm best known for, I suppose. Zayzoon is ultimately a platform that partners with many businesses across America and gives their employees access to their pay prior to the regularly scheduled payday. So it's this entirely new industry that spawned up called earned wage access. Apart from that, I love to hike. I live up here in Canada. I'm an hour from the Rockies in Calgary, Alberta. And so I'm out there every single weekend hiking up a storm. It's incredible.
And you told me before we started recording that you actually took this like wild road trip in an RV. What was that? How far did you go again?
Yeah, so another thing that I love is driving, and I combined that with the Zayzoon business. It's interesting. So as you build a business, you want to connect to the customers as much as possible, right? You want the customers to really feed into the product that you're building. You also want the company that you're building to thrive off the customers. Mm-hmm. And I think when you have that interaction, you really end up having like an incredible mission and everything that's something that everyone's behind. And so in late 2022, we were growing as a company. We wanted to ensure that we were connecting the individuals at Zayzoon, the new team members, the Zayzooners as we call them, to the mission of saving 10 million employees $10 billion. And we thought, what better way to do that than actually go and shake hands with our customers across the US? And so we got a Zayzoon branded RV, and I embarked on a 75-day road trip across 21 states and visited hundreds and hundreds of clients that we're partnered with. And there were more than 40 Zayzooners that sort of parachuted in for different parts of the journey. And it was just an incredible time.
So neat. Yeah, you told me that you had gotten down to Mobile at one point down here in Alabama where I am. So that was kind of fun, our little connection there, because otherwise I've got to get back up. I've never been to Calgary, actually. So I'll have to get up to your neck of the woods at some point.
Yeah, Calgary is incredible. I actually had a ton of fun in Mobile as well. And we did a neat little excursion, I think in Mississippi, right before landing in Mobile. I might be getting my geography and my dates mixed up here, but we did a little, what do you call it when you're on the water, planing on the boat?
Oh gosh.
Like this swamp style.
The audience is going to get me because I can't think of this right now, what that's called.
Like an airboat or something. Anyways, it was incredible. It was so much fun.
We'll have to find that one out and circle back in a minute. So, okay, cool. Well, that's really neat. I love that story. So apparently this is important to you. I'm getting that from the message, from the things you're sharing here. This bigger idea isn't just a thing you're doing, but it's what you believe in. So I'd love for you to start us off here for the audience and tell us, you have a front row seat to talking with so many different employers, with clients and prospects. There's people out there. What do you see as a differentiator for companies when it comes to financial well-being? What are they doing differently than those companies that maybe aren't prioritizing it?
Yes, step number one is they just care. Like they're actually making an effort. It is low-hanging fruit in many cases. There is a lot of companies that don't do anything, right? And I think so by just simply doing something, by taking a bit of feedback from your employees, by implementing a few really quick turnkey programs, you can all of a sudden parachute to the top percentile of the company class. Obviously, for me, I'm very biased on the earned wage access side of things. I think that if an employee can't really see past the next payday, that stress piles up. That's really dangerous for someone, right? It's a productivity suck for the business. And it's ultimately what creates a bunch of turnover where an employee is going to maybe jump ship for 25 cents an hour more. When really, yes, that's great, but the cash flow is maybe the issue that they're having. And so with earned wage access, the company's able to turn it on in minutes and give their employees that ability to get relief between paydays. Apart from that, I think there's a lot of really neat things now in the rewards and recognition space, ensuring that you're not just giving them financial beings, but also like moral boosts and stuff at work, right? Being able to tie them more directly to their job at hand, positively reinforce tasks that they've done through rewards and recognition. There's a lot of financial education out there. There's a lot of honestly free resources or very low cost resources that I think just spending a bit of time on, getting a bit of information from your own staff on what they want to see, and then combining that together to put forth a financial wellness platform, if you will, I think is really the best play for an employer and something that isn't too arduous.
I had a chance a couple of years ago to meet the founder of a company. It's a restaurant chain in Ohio called Hot Chicken Takeover. And one of the things that they do is they hire a lot of people who have a criminal record. people who have fair chance hires. And one of the things he noticed quickly is, listen, we went through all this effort to put together the right benefits package, and there's not a single employee out of all of them that are taking advantage of the 401k. Like, what's going on here? And start talking to them like, listen, I'm just trying to save up for a car because right now I'm riding the bus or I'm walking to work. And so I've got an immediate need. I can't think long-term yet. And so they started working with them instead to revise that and say, okay, well, instead of that, we'll do a matching savings plan for your first car, or we'll start doing things like earned wage access as a way to let you get access to your wages so that if you need them in the moment, you're not going to a payday lender or someone else that's going to put a burden on you and your family. And so they just realized that sort of thing. I love that sort of story. Like you're talking about there, like that took them just listening, asking some questions, and they were able to tailor that to meet the needs of their workforce, because everyone listening here, all of you out there, some of you have very different groups that you're working with. Some people are working on a manufacturing line. Some people are engineers. Some people are like all over the place. And so the things that work for one won't necessarily work for another. So that was a good call out there to start us off, Tate.
Yeah, that's a really, just to, really hit that home, like listen to your people. Surveys help, but like a survey question is it's very binary, right? It's like, are you having money issues? Yes or no?
Yes.
And it's difficult to sometimes surmise like what the actual issues are that are being experienced or what someone actually wants. And so I think just like hearing things like, well, hey, I'm saving up for a car. Well, that person's not telling you that they don't want a 401k, but you can sort of right away equate to the fact that, oh, if they're saving up for a car, they probably can't save for a 401k. And so like, let's shift that package into another area. The other thing that I thought maybe you were going for was communication. And so we have over 35,000 locations across the US that offer Zayzoon as a benefit to their staff. One of the big issues or problems to be solved that some of these, especially restaurants, talk about is the lack of communication or the lack of them being able to communicate with their staff. And so there might be a bunch of benefits available, but like their staff don't even know that it's available. They don't know that they have access to it. And so I think like it's really about, okay, getting feedback, building out a program, iterating based on that program, and then ensuring that you're communicating that program out and then continually recycling that feedback loop, I think is really how to operate a solid financial wellness platform.
Yes, absolutely. Well, speaking of that, so I want to ask you something, going beyond the survey, going to the people listening in here care about the people they're serving, care about the workforce. They want to make sure they're doing the right things. Are there any red flags or sort of signs that they should be looking for? Like this could be an indicator. We talked about this already, sort of looking for anything in the data, looking for and listening for things coming up in conversations. But is there anything else that the people out here, the HR leaders, can look for to make sure they're understanding and supporting the needs of their people?
So I'll speak specifically to earned wage access, and I'll try to bridge outside of that, but it's just what I know. One thing that we always guide employers to look for is how many advances are you doing currently? It's a very simple and obvious statement, but like it's really an indicator of something greater, right? If you are a workplace that is already giving some advances, chances are there are multiple other advances that you aren't giving out, that those employees are going to payday lenders, overdraft fees, et cetera. And so I think it's a very good sort of tell of that workplace financial health. Another thing is, just looking at like your general turnover. You can do things like exit surveys to discover why are they leaving? Are they leaving because they didn't have the benefits that they wanted? Are they leaving because the money wasn't good enough, et cetera, et cetera? And so I think like uncovering some of those things are really solid. And those would be sort of like the two main things that I would focus on. But yeah, for earned wage access specifically, it's like the benefits that it provides is improved retention, improved recruitment, and decreased financial stress. And so any indicators that you can find that are telling you that either of those are out of whack, it's probably a good indicator that there needs to be some financial health implemented into the workplace. The one other thing is till theft. So I love this story because it was so foreign to us. And it wasn't until we had an employer tell us that it like clicked, which was, we had a large, I won't say the brand, but we had a large quick serve restaurant, fast food restaurant chain using Zayzoon. And after implementing Zayzoon, their till theft dropped by 80%. And so employees, what they were doing is they were actually skimming money off the cash register, $20 at a time, because they needed that cash advance. And that reduced by 80% after implementing Zayzoon, because they all of a sudden realized, oh, well, I'm not going to take that risk. I'm not going to steal if I can just simply access my pay ahead of time. So I thought that was a really neat anecdote as well.
That's one that ties back into the business outcomes too, not just an HR outcome that we care about in our bubble, but things that the business is worried about, cared about, and is investing and trying to solve for. When you mentioned the payday advance thing a minute ago, that's a very straightforward one. You can tell immediately if you're getting some of those kinds of things. The other one that tied into that for me was 401k loans. When I used to see people applying for these loans, like the second they pay it off, I'm like, hey, congratulations. Like, yeah, I need to get another one. Come on now. We've got to stop unplugging your future retirement value. You've got to figure a better way to do this. One of my good friends worked for a company that wrote into their documents that you couldn't borrow money back from your 401k once you put it in there, because they said people will think short term, they'll do something, and then they'll get trapped long term and never be able to retire because you're doing that. So there's a couple different things that tie in there. And that reminded me when you share that on the payday advance, because we had done years ago, I was at a company, and some of you out there may have been there for the same kind of thing. We transitioned from a certain pay period to a different one. And that meant there was going to be a 1 week lag. And everyone was a little bit nervous about, oh gosh, how we're going to make that up. And as a leadership team, we're talking a lot about it, thinking through how do we make sure everyone's bridged. And basically we came back to what you shared earlier. We communicate in advance. We said we have options here if you need one. We are happy to advance you a week's pay if you need that. But we really just were open and communicative about it. And only 2% of our entire population needed any help at all. The rest of them, we gave them enough advance notice that they said, we'll make do. And so it's one of those things where we sometimes blow it up. And if we'll just stop and actually address them like real people, I don't know, for some reason that seems to work, and they'll get to the other side of it and they'll be able to share what they need from us at the same time. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, you talked about some of the impacts, some of the results. There's a ton of data. We've done research, and I know I'd actually talked to Shane on the team recently, and he was sharing some of the data points as well. But there's so much data out there that backs this up, all the research, all these things showing that if you're using things like earned wage access, like financial benefits, wellness benefits for your people, they help to attract candidates. They help to keep them when they're there. They're a really helpful sticking point in a good way to make sure that your workforce sticks with your organization. So if anyone out there is thinking about that, or you're having challenges with hiring retention and you're not doing, this could be one of those things that helps to set you apart. And as you said, Tate, it's not like we're spending money endlessly to do this. It's for many times it's something very inexpensive, or it's purely educational to help support that sort of need.
Yeah. So I think maybe setting context as to how that can benefit business, right? So there are a lot of stats out there. At Zayzoon, we tout 29% reduction in turnover for businesses that offer us, 2 times more job applicants for businesses that offer us. We reduce absenteeism per employee by about 8 hours. That's just directly related to their decrease in financial stress, and therefore they're not trying to juggle bill payment and everything else at work. They're getting ahead of themselves, or ahead of their lives. But sorry, to set a bit of context, like, how does financial wellness help you recruit? It's kind of a weird concept, right? But I think like it helps you recruit because you are shouting from the rooftops in your job posts. You are putting posters in your windows. You're letting people know that if you work here, you are going to have financial benefits available to you that maybe the business across the street isn't offering. So again, I think like understand your key persona, understand who, like your key persona being your employees, being the people that you're hiring. What are their needs? How do they differ from the business across the street? And how can you then cater to them more specifically? And then how can you advertise that? And I think that does wonders for a business.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for sharing some of those stats. I'm a data nerd, as anyone here knows. So having some stats on that. So I don't know anyone out there listening in that would say, we'll turn down more applicants. We'll turn down a reduction in turnover. We'll turn down absentee. We're going to give those things up in advance or in exchange for something else. They would want those benefits. Absolutely. So one of the things that I want to make sure everybody does. So we're going to actually link over to the Zayzoon website so y'all can connect. Y'all can learn more about what they're up to. And again, we appreciate the team for supporting the event, for coming alongside us and helping to make sure we're raising this up. I was telling Tate before we started recording that I personally have a big passion for financial wellness, for well-being. That's one of the things that we do when we travel to Guatemala as a family, as we support a ministry there that does this education for young adults because they don't have access to those same resources that many of us take for granted. And so I believe strongly in this, and the financial health of every family means the financial health of a community wherever we are, where we live and where we serve and where we work, if we're able to do that well. So there's some great benefits to this beyond just like we're gonna make sure and cover the earned wage access. That's the mechanism for it, but it's having this bigger impact on these families in a powerful sort of way. And that's what every one of us as HR leaders want to have. So Tate, thank you so much for spending some time with us, for sharing your passion for this, and some good data, some good encouragement for everybody else out there that this is possible and they can use it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For sure. To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more HR Summer School coming right up. All right. So you can tell like my passion for personal finance, for teaching that. And I saw in the chat here, lots of you saying we're either offering this or we need to be offering this. Why is it not already offered? Like a lot of us see those things. It's like one of those, well, yeah, and we should be doing that. And so that's why I shared the story of Hot Chicken Takeover. I've met with other companies as well that do similar things, trying to bring that to their people, to make it relevant, to make it practical, to give it to them, because otherwise they may not ever have access to that kind of thing. So that was my big thing. Anything for you out of that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are already saying like the educational piece, like this should be part of, and it goes back to the education. You know, your wife being a former teacher,
Yes.
Having a conversation with her yesterday afterwards. You know, some of these things that are taught. There's a lot of things that, and I'll say this because I saw that so many times. I thought there's so many things that we can say that about when it comes to hiring people or having people on our team, and we're like, how do you not know?
Yes.
It goes back to my old adage: is what's simple to me may not be simple for others.
Yes.
Right. And so some behaviors are not learned, some things are not taught. You know, you may have had a great financial. I didn't have one. I learned my finances because I was stingy and selfish, and I love shoes and I wanted to save. Right. So we all have our motives. You know, some
Yes.
people have, you know, those in their life. Some people just have cards, and they, you know, my wife, Amber, just likes to slice and dice. And so be understanding of, you know, people come from different backgrounds and circumstances. Some people have, you know, raised up in finances but still don't care.
Yes.
But it is been in retail and having, you know, 18 retail stores for several years. You know, one of the things we learned was, you know, we'll have people get paid on Friday and couldn't make it to work on Monday. And that's a real thing. And I encourage people to take it serious, offer opportunities. It's not like they want to live that way. They just don't know how to separate things. We always say, hey, give us, but we don't teach them how to save for themselves. And so I encourage you to do so. There's a lot of companies, and I love it. They're saying, hey, we're offering financial literacy. We're bringing in, you know, bank institutions and things to do those classes. I encourage people. It's always better to bring somebody in than to have somebody on your own team. Even your CFO, it's one of those mom and dad told you to say the same thing, but aunt and uncle comes over and it means something else.
Yes.
I encourage you to do that. It's just a different perspective. It's always great.
Every HR person knows that trick. You're like, I've told my leadership this 10 times. I'm going to bring someone else in who's an outside voice. They'll tell them the exact same thing that I said. And suddenly it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Yeah. And you're sitting there like, yeah, it was a great idea 6 months ago. It still is. Let's go ahead and make that happen. So, okay. Tremendous. Great session. Thank you again, Tate. Thank you to the Zayzoon team for supporting. So we are going to transition over. George had an awesome interview with Renata Samuel. Yes. And so we're going to hear that session now. We're going to dive in, get some good takeaways, some good ideas in this conversation. And I think we have one more after that one. Then we're going to take a break, do some giveaways, do some announcements, things like that, and transition to the end of the day. So we have a lot of good stuff coming ahead. Let's get out of the way for George and Renata.
Much, and I'm excited about this conversation with my new friend Renata, living in one of the best states that I've ever visited. So I want to welcome everybody here. Renata, can you share with the audience just a little bit about yourself and what you do, some of your passions?
Absolutely. So I'm Renata Samuel. I'm a culture, talent, and people leader. I support organizations and leaders in retaining diverse top talent and improving team dynamics. I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to work at both the strategic and tactical level. It all depends on when someone brings me in to work on a project. At the organizational level, a lot of the work that I do is behind initiatives that relate to workforce planning and development, organizational development, change management, talent management, employee design experience, things of that nature. At the individual or professional level, typically I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, some group coaching, but individuals that are looking for ways to use their professional development budget to grow and expand in their role. Being able to come into organizations and be guest speakers at town hall meetings, all hands, ERG sponsored events. So I'm fortunate enough to get to do quite a bit in the HR space.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to dive right into this conversation. Over the course of the last 4 years, we've seen this DEI and B become a conversation. We've seen it become a program. We've seen it become strategies for many. And then we've seen it kind of wing away from a lot of the workplace. And I would venture to say, if I was to ask the audience, many of them would say that this DEI and B and internal employee mobility are separate concepts. How do you see those things intersecting? And where are you with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I would agree also, they are two separate concepts and they should have a separate budget to reach their goal. It's not an all-in-one thing. But with those two separate concepts, there's an opportunity for them to work well together to enhance any advancement that they would make on their own. So when we look at internal mobility, when we look at DEIB, the true intersectionality, in my opinion, is sustainability. How sustainable is the work that we're doing? At this time and age, employees want sustained efforts, meaningful efforts. They want to see evolution. No longer are they going to be satisfied with Taco Tuesday, Wonton Wednesday, and Fried Chicken Friday. Don't get me wrong, I'm a foodie, so I'm going to show up for all of those events to eat, but we need more than that. These efforts really need to have a place where there's effectiveness and there's an opportunity to grow the organization. Are they truly embedded in the business operations, not just add-on and afterthoughts? So when we talk about a lot of those food events that organizations have, those are really about building rapport, encouraging communication and engagement, maybe possibly adding to employee satisfaction and camaraderie, contributing to culture, but not really pushing the needle as it relates to DE efforts, because those things need to be tied back to the business, not just some social events. So anytime you're tying things back to the business, you need to look at the numbers. I want to, on the front end, recruiting, where are our diverse recruiting partners? Where are diverse recruiting marketing efforts, pools, things of that nature? And then on the back end, depending on what diversity means in that organization, let's look at the statistics. How many women do we have in leadership? What are the ethnic or minority groups that are in leadership? What are your employee satisfaction numbers, engagement numbers, things of that nature? And how well are the programs that we have in place hitting the mark? We look at ERG programs or mentorship programs, leadership programs. What are the results and how is it affecting our retention numbers? So that's that DEIB spot. But then on the internal mobility spot, it makes no sense to put all these DEIB numbers and efforts in if we're not retaining and maintaining the work that we did. If it's just you're throwing money out of the window, that makes no sense. So internal mobility can be a great vehicle for employers to improve overall business operations. But once again, it's about that sustainability coming together. How are those efforts working in unison?
Yeah, you said a lot there, and I want to kind of break this down a little bit because you get those fried chicken Fridays and everything that you said, and I'm over here cracking up because it's true. We give these things to our employees and we think that it's going to satisfy them. But no, some of these employees don't have a clue why they're receiving Taco Tuesday or Fried Chicken Friday. It's there in the room, it's there in the break room, but what is this for? And so we know what we do as a job, but why are we being rewarded this way? Why is this food here? That storytelling and connectability, and I put those words together. Connectability is the word of the day right there. How are we connecting what we do with why we are doing it? Having a sense of purpose of those things that need to be aligned. There are so many companies that desire to do this, but also do it right. A lot of people are doing things and it's not really aligning, and where there's not alignment, there's declinement. You're going to decline if you're not aligned at some point. What advice do you give companies that want to do this and do it well?
Absolutely. So number one, be a good listener and take action. Making sure you have the right people at the table so you can get the desired results that you want. Understanding that this is a long-term commitment. It's not just a budget item for this quarter or for this year, but we have to think about the long-term sustainability. Are we inspecting what we expect? Are we managing the behaviors of our leaders so that they're functioning in a way that we want? An example is a company could say, oh, we admire innovation and input. That's one of our core mission or values, things of that nature. But in all of your meetings, there's no room or space for feedback. If you do have feedback, one of the worst things that happen is the feedback isn't taken into consideration, and then the employees never hear anything from the feedback that they're given. So you really have to be a good listener, take action, make sure you have the right people at the table to implement the work that needs to be done, and do it in a way that it's sustainable.
Yeah. How do we, let's talk about the right seat at the table. How do we take it from the table to the kitchen? We talked a little bit about food. We're both foodies, so we're going to talk a little about this food. I think for me, and I'll get personal here, I don't want to be at the table anymore. How do we get in the kitchen? How do we put our ingredients to this mix? Because I know that you probably can cook. My mom and them can put their foot in it and do it, but because everybody has a different flavor, right? We talk about this cooking. We're at this table having this conversation. We're talking about food. How do you get the right people to be able to season it how they want to season it, have that voice in the sense to where their voice really matters. It's not just, hey, this is what we're going to do it. It's, hey, how can we do this thing? And we all discover our why and our purpose in this thing we call life together, because a lot of us, we're spending our blood, sweat, and tears more time here with our work team and I don't want to say work family, but with our work counterparts than we do with our actual family. How can our voice matter more than just being at the table, but also in the kitchen, being a part of the ingredients?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm a firm believer in it's not a good idea to come up with a solution for people who are not at the table. Don't try to solve things for people and don't have their input. So identify the problem, the issue, and then who does this affect? Bring those individuals to the table. And if that's done properly, you should have a very diverse perspective, diverse in experience, diverse in exposure, things of that nature. So once you hear what their concerns are, you know what the business needs, the business objectives are, but you understand now the people who this is affecting, what their needs are, and coming together and having those conversations to move to the next level, to work on the strategic planning as well as the tactical implementation of what you come up with. And a lot of times you need outside support. A lot of this can't be done all in-house because people are too close to it. And then keeping in mind, they're dealing with the daily task of doing whatever their job function is. So a lot of these overarching projects really need an outside look, an outside consultant to come in and help and partner and really drive that initiative so they don't get buried in emails under everything else that's going on. So having those individuals at the table, having a continuous feedback form. This is what we're implementing. We're working in this agile method. We're implementing this. What is the feedback? How do we need to move? And we're continually to build it as we go. It's not a set it and forget it type thing.
That is so good. I want to end this conversation, kind of not end it, but kind of move this conversation then in the most important thing that I feel like this all impacts, and that's culture. We both love culture. We love talking about it. And again, culture is, to me, and I would love to know your definition, how you define culture. So I'll give you mine. I would love to hear yours. I define it as how most people feel, believe, and behave. Not all the time, but most of the time. How our leaders make me feel will determine what I believe about this company, and what I believe about this company is going to be the outcome of my behavior. A lot of companies try to fix behavior, but they don't understand why the person is behaving the way they are. And it's because how you make me feel is what I believe, and the outcome of all those things is behavior. How do you define culture? And then how does this go from a simple process to a culture and a value, or in some cases, I like to call them promises?
Absolutely. So when we think about culture at the simplest form, I put it at what will be accepted. What will be accepted within that organization, within that business. Whatever behaviors or norms will be accepted, that's your culture. Whether you like it or not, it is. So when we talk about practices and what can you put into place, we're defining our culture, but is it implemented in our business operations? So we're looking at our 360 reviews, whatever your review process is. If you are trying to build a culture that's inclusive and it's promoting allyship and mentorship and sponsorship, are those things part of the evaluation metrics? And then if they're not, it's not important to anyone, because they're not being evaluated. It's just some add-on thing that you threw out and no one's really taking it seriously. When we talk about engagement, when engagement in our ERG groups or our business resource groups, things of that nature, how engaged is the work that they do in business initiatives? Or is it just some side project you give people and nothing really happens? They work over here in a silo and they promote Taco Tuesday, Wonton Wednesday, but it's not connected to the business. No one's getting involved in that. We're not here for that. We're here to advance our professional status within the organization, to grow. And so, yes, we can have these cultural things, these social things, but it needs to be tied back to the business. So when you're bringing candidates in, when you're bringing leadership in, let them know this is the culture we're trying to build, we're trying to maintain, and our expectation is for you to promote that. And this is what we're looking for you to do. This is the behavior we're looking for you to exhibit while at this organization.
I want to end with this, and I just want to kind of give you the floor. When it comes to culture, we did a research in our piece, performance, engagement, and culture enablement. And one of the things that we found is that when there's high belonging scores, a psychological definition of belonging is I feel accepted, respected, and appreciated by my direct leader. When an employee has a high belonging score, they're 5 times more likely to recommend their company as a great place to work. I want to be there. I want to be encouraged by that. When people are belonging and there's alignment, as you're talking about, and the culture is right, it's accepted, as you said, it means something. Can you share, just as we end this session, can you share from your heart the power and the importance of that?
Absolutely. In corporate America, it's all about the dollar. That's why we're here. So when you have people who feel as if they belong, that engagement increases so much. The productivity increases so much. And like you said, they're willing to bring in their friends. So not only is it improving your retention, so that's helping with your training and your development dollars and things, but the fact that they're willing to bring on other great talent and recommend them to come into the organization, that's helping with your recruiting dollars. So it's so much more than just a small piece. It goes throughout the whole company. And that's why everyone needs to be involved in culture initiatives. It's not just an HR thing. It's not just a DEIB thing. It's not just the people person, culture and development leaders thing. We all own a space here and making sure we're promoting the right culture and promoting and inclusivity and innovation within the organization to grow the organization, to capture more market share. And all of that comes from the culture.
Awesome. Well, if people want to connect with you, Ms. Renata, where can they connect with you? You want to share some of the information with us?
Absolutely. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. You're more than welcome to connect with me there. You'll see links to my scheduling website. If you are working on an initiative as it relates to sustainability for talent retention or DEIB, I highly encourage you to book a free HR consultation call with me. You'll see that under my LinkedIn bio, and I'm pretty active on other social platforms as well, including Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all those good things.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and this has been a wonderful conversation. I want to thank you so much. I know that our HR Summer School audience is enjoying it as well.
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, so George and I got hungry. We're over here like having a snack because Renata kept bringing up all these food metaphors and analogies. And we actually had someone in the audience that's asked about the shirt that George is wearing. So if he'll show that off real quick.
It's brought to you by
Ranch.
Ranch. I love ranch, but it's very simple. Let's see how we can get that in there.
There we go. Employee belonging is the ranch dressing of HR. Amy Mosher last year during summer school said, hey, just pour a little bit of employee belonging on everything you're doing. It's going to turn out okay. And so George is doing that day to day, I think.
Yeah, you got to have a ranch goes with just about everything. Ranch
that is
hot
your
sauce.
opinion, sir. That is your opinion.
It's like ranch dressing is like putting your foot in it. That really worries you, doesn't it?
That's a saying that I do not know.
It's a country. It's an inner city thing. It's Mama Nim. You know about Mama Nim? Mama Nim put their foot in it.
Okay.
That means it was smacking. It's so good you want to smack your mama. Now I couldn't smack my mama because I start having flashbacks.
You could do it once. And there would be no more after that.
I smacked her once. I did, but I put her picture back on the wall.
No.
I'm joking. Oh, ranch dressing.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So ranch dressing, HR, Renata, thank you for again making everybody a little hungry, but also giving us some good recipes for bringing culture to the forefront and making it impactful. Chris, your comment there at the end, like I kind of said it for me, like if we can't explain why we're doing Taco Tuesday, then we have failed. Like these things have to have an impact, an outcome, a meaning. If we're just doing it because someone told us to a long time ago and we're repeating it, then it's not really having the impact that we're hoping for. And listen, we're all too busy to do stuff that doesn't matter, doesn't have an impact. So let's focus on the things that absolutely do. Okay. And speaking of impacts and speaking of measurement and all that kind of good stuff. So let's dive into this next conversation. Then we're going to take a little bit of an intermission, a little break. We're going to share some prizes, call out some winners. Been tracking everybody that's been commenting and sharing, trying to grab some of all of you to represent that winner category. So stay tuned, stay engaged there. We're going to keep flagging some more of those comments for wins. We're going to hear from Jenna Filipowski on, she works for the Federal Reserve Bank of, I want to say New York right now. I'm completely blanking on that, but she is an IO psychologist by training. She is a researcher and she now works within the organization sort of as a problem solver, that something comes up on the HR side and like, hey, what do you think about this? How are people making these decisions? What drives employee behaviors? And they sort of like are a hit squad to come in and help solve that problem using data, which is like my dream. So you'll hear from her, Jenna, and the team there on what they're doing, and hear some ideas from her on how you can take that approach within your own organization, even if you don't have an IO psych background or a bunch of data and evidence at your fingertips like I do. She'll give some ideas on how to make that happen. So let's dive into this conversation with Jenna. Welcome back to summer school here. We're covering some good ground. And what I love about summer school every year is we look at some new and different areas of the work we get to touch every single day and talk to some practitioners who aren't exactly in this HR bubble. They're a little bit like tangential or a little bit, right parallel to that. And so Jenna is a great example of that. I've known Jenna for a couple of years. She and I both share a love of data and research, and Jenna really focuses on organizational effectiveness, organizational development, all those kinds of things. And so I'm excited to talk to you about some of those kind of things today. Welcome. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me, and happy summer, everybody. So I'm excited for that. So I'm Jenna Filipowski. I work for the Federal Reserve Bank of New York as a people science advisor. And just to preface, everything I say today is my own views and not that of my employer.
So when you're not doing people science advisor work, what do you like to do? Tell us more
I
about
am also a professional soccer. It's my calling in life to make sure my son has his cleats and is at the right field at the right. But I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. So obviously summer is a good soccer time as well.
Okay. We are this spring. For whatever reason, I don't know why, I regretted it. Like the week after I said yes, I agreed to coach an 8U team and a 10U team for 2 of my kids. And then it ended up being like this crazy chaos of just trying to get everybody at the right place at the right time. And so I'm like, never again. I pick one and we'll all make it fit in. So I'm with you on the whole soccer parent thing. Hey, take your cleats off, take your shin guards off, put them in the same place. I don't want to find them tomorrow or next week or whatever, like put them where they go. So cool. All right. So just to kind of start us off a little bit, I teased this a little bit at the beginning there for the audience, but talk about organizational effectiveness, what that is and how it's either related to or sort of different from HR work.
Yeah, so I joined my organization about 3 years ago, and we're a new team inside the HR function at the bank. So we're all organizational psychologists. So we have a background in the science of work, and we use that background and the statistics knowledge, the science knowledge to help the organization improve and how our HR programs and processes get better. So we do a lot of things like our listening strategy. So how we understand our employees and their experience, how we understand future workforce needs in terms of skills, how we decide about our culture and us being an employer of choice. So what attracts and retains and engages our people, and using that information to build programs. So it touches a lot. I think we're kind of like internal consultants for the organization and for the HR function as well.
Okay. So how much of that is internal data? Like, I'm obviously employee listening, if you're paying attention to what your people are saying, versus external data, looking at some of the things that are out in the market, big shifts, big trends, big changes, and trying to meld those things together. Is it more of one or the other?
It's both. Obviously, we would access to more internal data now, and obviously pairing that with HRIS data and people analytics work, but it's both. And I'm a researcher by trade, just like you. So it's the synthesis of everything, right? That's what we do, is take all the inputs, make sense of it, translate it for our individuals who are our executives, who are our everyday manager, for the HR professional, and making sure they have information they need to make better decisions. So yeah, it's all of it.
Interesting. Okay. So some of what you're doing, as you said, kind of a little bit parallel to the HR track, but you're plugging in here and there, adding suggestions, adding advice, adding recommendations as a consultant. I like that that's a good image for me to sort of wrap that together and giving them inputs and things, but you're not like doing the payroll stuff. You're not doing all of the other things that HR would be doing and handling. So talk about that partnership, if you don't mind, because I'm kind of curious what that might feel like to say, hey, we've found some new things. Now we've got to get HR, even though they care about the people, they want them to succeed. It may be like, hey, the thing we've been doing for a long time may not be the best strategy. We need a new approach. Talk about that piece of it and how you have to approach that. Again, using that sort of consultative probably approach, if I had to guess.
Absolutely. And we can't do it alone, right? So even if you had an external consultant, they pass off their findings or recommendations to you, and someone has to implement. Yeah. So we have to have empathy for the people who are implementing and working through it. So for example, we just launched we're calling them Moments That Matter, our talent lifecycle survey. So at new hire, onboarding, hiring manager, quality of hire, and exit, we're going to have all this rich data around these touch points in the employee experience. So with that data, we're going to find things of ways we could improve, ways the recruiters could get better, ways recruiting coordinators could get better. So we need to work with them on improvements, but also working together on identifying solutions. It's not just what we think, they're living it every day. It can't just be about what we want. It has to be that partnership.
That's one of the things I see is a challenge, whether it's an external consultant or someone else. Oh, well, here's the answer. I'll just lay that on you and walk away. Like, wait a minute, someone's actually got to make this all work. And I mean, that may be a great idea. There might be data to back that up, but at the end of the day, we don't have the bandwidth, or we don't have the people, or we don't have the skills to actually make that happen. And so we're going to have to do some other things to get ready for that versus just here's your answer to the question you asked. And that's an answer we can't implement right now. So I appreciate you really covering some of those kind of things. So that does matter.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and we know, like we work with you on the answer, and I'll see you in the cafeteria. Like I'm there with you along for the ride to make this better, because we all have this shared commitment to making the employee experience better. We just come at it from different ways.
That's the difference in being an internal consultant and an external one. Like, I presented the PowerPoint, I've given you the report, goodbye, I'll go cash the check, versus I'm going to be here next week. I've got to give you a workable solution. And
and a lot of solutions too, as you think about, are iterative. It's not like a one and done thing. So as you implement, as you think about what's working, what's not working, we're there along the way to help assess and evaluate and make changes and incremental change. So that's why I like being an internal consultant, because I could see the impact on our people too. It's not like I have that firsthand view of like how our survey, people talk about our employee experience survey, how it's adding value, people talking about our workforce planning capabilities, how it's adding value, coaching, all of that. It's more rewarding to see in real time, because you're working alongside these individuals.
Yeah, you care about these people, you have relationships with them on a deeper level than just external. So okay, we've got a good picture of what you do and how that plugs in, how it connects to the organization's goals and HR's objectives, all those kind of things. Now let's take a step back for a second and say, for our friends who are listening here, many of them are doing HR day to day. They don't have the Jenna on their team to help them out, but they are like, I'm kind of curious, what if I wanted to take some of that approach? What if I wanted to think about organizational effectiveness and use that as part of how I'm thinking about our broader strategy? any advice you would give them for how to build that muscle, how to be a little bit more focused on some of those things, or open the lens for them a little bit for what sort of opportunities might exist for improving some of the work they're doing already?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I'm very fortunate that our organization invested so heavily in this team because we have that capability to think and build and work and consult.
Mhm.
But I would just ask that the HR professional, an HR of one, or a very small team of generalists, just start with the question. What do you notice? What are you curious about? What problems do you see happening? And then from there, think about where your data sources are to help you answer that question. And maybe it's not quantitative data, maybe it's talking to people, maybe it's interviews, maybe it's looking externally to see what research has been done on this topic. And then think about what solution would work for your organization. Like in HR, there's not like only one set, it's not one size fits all. You have to adapt and adjust and what makes sense for you, what makes sense for the state of what your organization's in. You can't just take what works for P&G and put it in your organization because that won't work. You have to consider the context that you're in. So I would just recommend start with the question, find your data sources, and think about what recommendations you have based on what works for your organization. And I also small is much more manageable, simple. You don't have to overhaul everything to see change. Some little tweaks here and there can make a big difference.
So two things. Number one, the theme this year is one size fits one. So it does not fit all. I think that's a great call out and perfectly aligned with this. There are our sort of approach this year to talk about how it can be a little more tailored, a little more personalized in what we're doing to address the needs of the entire population we're serving, not just one vocal segment or one segment who represents the majority, because when we do that, we miss out on some of the other things that everybody else can bring in terms of value. Yeah. But the other thing that I've shared before is, listen, the secret code word when you're trying to get something pushed through, a new change, whatever else, is pilot. We're going to try something small. We're going to try something. And I love that you pointed that one out. It's easy to think, well, goodness, what if we could have all these big, massive changes? And that's not good for you. You don't have the bandwidth, the time, the resources, the credibility, like something's going to limit you there. But if you said, I'm going to make this small change, let's do some experimentation. I think that's a great approach there to try some of those things out. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. That's a great path to talk about. You talked about start with questions, look for the problems you can see, being curious, and start leaning in, gathering what data you have at hand, or start gathering data if you haven't in the past. Can you give me an example of something like that that's a company out there could be thinking about? Because that might be like, okay, it's a good process, but give me an example of something I could do, a kind of problem that I could solve that ties back to that.
Yeah. So a lot of like when we think about organizational effectiveness, our team, a lot encompass that. So leader effectiveness, team effectiveness, individuals having the right resources they need. These are huge buckets of things to focus on. But when we launched our listening approach, we do a biannual employee experience survey. With that, we now have the data to understand all of those buckets. What does team effectiveness look like? What does overall organizational health look like based on the answers to these survey questions? So that helps us. It's not really a small project because it was like a bank-wide survey, but at least instead of every 2 years getting data back, now we have data every 6 months to investigate, like, how do people feel like they could innovate in their side of our company? Do people have the resources and training they need? What does collaboration look like? So having that data at our fingertips helps us assess team and organizational health and effectiveness to use that as a starting point for solutions. So for example, from our survey, if we find that, for example, leaders aren't great at setting a vision and communicating that downward, so people don't feel connected to the strategy of the organization. Based on our expertise as consultants, what are some recommendations we can make to leaders to get better at that? And in those, does that mean we have to develop a training for leaders? Does that mean we have to do some sort of talking points? Does that mean we just do consulting with leaders to say, this is how you get better at communicating a vision? So maybe that was not the best small example, but that's how we use this access to data and to focus on like areas of improvement based on recent timely information.
I think you said it earlier. You said sometimes it may not be quantitative, it may be qualitative. We're having some focus groups, we're having some conversations with employees, and we're picking up these signals. A lot of them are telling us that this big change that we're excited about as a leadership team, they don't have clarity on that. They're not quite sure what their role is going to be. They're a little bit ambiguous, and there may be some fear there. So what can we do to equip their leaders to do that? So I think that same thing is true, even if it's not a big major survey like you're talking about, those opportunities still exist. So if one of you out there is going through a change in your organization, or you're acquiring a new company, or you have this new product you're excited about that's going to change the direction fundamentally of your organization, or there's a risk that's out there, some new competition comes in, like any of those kind of things, your people know about it generally, and they're going to be like, how do we make sure that their leaders are equipped to have the conversation? I think that's a good call out there. And as you're talking about, it's, hey, we're picking up some signals. It goes back to your sort of formula there, picking up some signals. We have some data that's telling us this is important. What can we do? What are some solutions we can put out there? There's a lot of options, and there might not be a best or only option. There might be a couple of different ones we're going to mix and match. But thinking through the fact that you have these tools at your disposal to do that, I see it as problem identification and then solution generation. It's kind of like what you do back and forth. You're always looking for what other problems or optimization can you create within the workplace and the workforce, and how do we ensure that they're doing their very best work. That's my paraphrasing of work effectiveness.
Yeah. And along with programmatic work that's baked into the calendar. So for example, our survey launches, org design work, supporting other leadership development launches and the evaluation of them. So there's a lot of stuff that's set in stone. We don't just go around looking for problems all the time. We're here to execute on a lot of programs, but also have this mindset of where can we get better and how can we use data to understand that.
How often do problems get brought to y'all as a team? Hey, we have this issue. Do you think you can help? Versus y'all having to say, hey, we're seeing this thing in the data. Let's go dig deeper. Does that happen as well? Whether you're getting
so like I mentioned earlier, we're still a newer team, so we're only 3 years old. But I think with our reputation and getting more visibility into projects, people have started coming to us to understand. So do I have the right structure in my organization? Do I have the right skills makeup of my organization? How can I make my frontline leaders better so they have higher engagement in their teams? These questions leaders are starting to ask, and they're like, well, who can help me answer these questions? And they come to the organizational effectiveness team sometimes to do that. Or it might just be a one-off conversation with their HRBP too. So it just depends on the level of investment they want to make in finding the solutions, or sometimes we already have the solution out there. We already have that training program that exists. I just didn't know about it. So it's a combination of both, but credibility goes a long way for sure.
I mean, this in the most positive, encouraging way. This is like the Geek Squad for some of those kind of things. So we need help with this. And we have a group of brilliant people whose job is to help solve problems like this. So yes, absolutely. Let's enlist them, get them on board. And they solve that already, or they have some ideas already. That's kind of thing is so thrilling to me. I know that you have a big fondness for data overall. It seems like that's a superpower in this sort of role. Is that fair?
For sure. Yeah. You need evidence to support your recommendations. Yeah.
That's one of the things I'm always encouraging. I think every year it's a theme for summer school for me, and no one's surprised it's the data guy saying that. But like, we have to stop going with, well, I think, I feel, I hope, like those. No, like the data say this. Based on that, here are some things we can try. We don't always have the exact right answer, but as you said, like iterate, be willing to try, be willing to experiment, at least on a small scale, and find something that seems directionally accurate and go from there. So that's always a thing I sort of harp on a little bit, because that's a thing that I didn't do well when I was doing HR day to day.
Oh yeah.
We get a little better at that piece of it.
And you have to have empathy though, because sometimes data is hard to collect and come by and utilize. So you have to start somewhere, and there's not like this perfect answer, this like perfection of this is exactly what we're looking for. Like you have to approximate and try something, but I always think some data is better than no data, but sometimes intuition does have a role as well.
Yes. Yeah, I would say it's a combination of things. I tell this story sometimes about this guy versus a recruiter, this competition they had a while back. And the recruiter ended up winning because he spent all this time doing it. It was like brute human force against an AI. But I'm like, listen, is the better answer 40 hours of human effort or 4 seconds of AI work? Like neither one's the right answer. It's let's do a first cut with the AI in 4 seconds, and then let's let the human spend 30 minutes to figure out the right answer instead of doing all one or all the other. And the same thing is true there. It's not, well, let's endlessly gather data because we might get to a 95% solution if we spend 4 more weeks. No, someone's got to actually take a decision today, make this decision versus, well, we're going to skip over the data because that's kind of hard to get that stuff, and we'll just go in with our gut. And there's a middle ground between all of those sorts of things. So
exactly.
Excellent. Well, Jenna, thank you for spending some time, for giving some encouragement here. It was not my ultimate goal to have you here to talk about data, I promise, but it ended up being a part of the conversation. So for all of you out there, like, this wasn't intentionally on Ben's part. I wanted Jenna here because I respect your voice, respect your insight, and have honestly wanted to just catch up back up with you. It's been a long time. So if the audience wants to connect with you, wants to follow you on LinkedIn or learn more about the work that you're doing, are you okay if they connect with you there?
Yeah, please reach out on LinkedIn and just send me a message. Happy to send you my calendar invite and have a conversation. I love connecting to the HR community, so I welcome that anytime.
Perfect. Awesome. Appreciate you again, my friend. And to everybody else out there, stay tuned for more good HR Summer School coming right up. Okay, goodness. So great. I mean, he's watching me. He smiles because I'm smiling over here from all the data conversation there with Jenna. But as I said, someone said in the chat a minute ago, and I'll say it, like, data in its own on its own is useless. It's for what it tells us to do next, or what it tells us to stop doing, or what it says, hey, this is a good path, continue. The red, yellow, green sort of thing, exercise most of us have probably learned at one time or another from making decisions. The data can help us to inform those things. So, do you have a comment, sir? You have something?
I do not. I just, I love, I can't see everybody here live. So if you're having a good time, just one more time, just hit the like, the love, the laughter buttons over there. Just make them go up, because if you get the experience being on the backside like I do, behind the scenes, if you will, anytime there's data spoken, sometimes there's a moment of intrigue, and then there's a moment of proudness. I mean, it's similar. Misha, shout out to Misha, my friend Misha Rattler out there in good old Texas with the VIBE acronym. I saw that. Mm-hmm. That makes me proud when I see, acronyms. When you see data,
yes,
data vibes.
There we go. Well, oh goodness, we'll bring all those things together. So we have just a couple minutes here for our sort of break, intermission, whatever you want to call this thing. It's not intermission because you better not leave. Stay tuned. But we are going to do some giveaways. We're going to hand some things out. We're going to give some prizes away. And
should we give away this autographed ranch dressing from Ben and George? Anybody?
I don't know anybody wants it. I think a ranch dressing going to the mail sounds like a bad idea to me. We're going to. Goodness gracious. Okay. I told you to laugh more and you're already getting me. Okay. So here we go. So some giveaways here. So summer school shirts for our recap winners from the beginning earlier today. We call those names out, but there you are with your instructions. Reach out to Melanie at upstarthr.com. I was telling her yesterday, so Melanie's my wife. She's our vice principal unofficially, and everybody loves and appreciates her. So give her a shout out, give her a thumbs up for taking care of the whole crew while I'm doing the summer school thing. So George, yesterday, we didn't talk about this one. We did not give these away, but George gave me the thumbs up this morning. So George has put together a 5 promises course. Give us the 30-second highlights of that.
Yeah, so this is just a strategy behind core values. At our organization, we call them promises that we keep. So some companies call them core values, but it's really just a strategy of how to align your promises, your values in every concept of business. So you have business strategies, your marketing strategy, core value strategy, how to align that in every decision making.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to give away those courses to some of our commenters who have been active, chiming in, participating so far. And then last but not least, I'm trying to grab a couple more of my SPHR friends. So if you're out there and you got the SPHR, make sure you're active in the comments. I'm trying to grab you. If you're on LinkedIn, I can see that. If you're on YouTube, I can't tell if you're an SPHR. Apologies, but I'll try to grab some of you to make sure I'm giving out some of those courses there. The business credit course on AI that I'm finishing up. Once summer school's all over, I'm finishing that one up. So we'll be available out there for you. So congratulations to the winners. And we'll have some more winners in just a little bit. We're actually a perfect transition point. So our next conversation is going to be with Allie Ford. She's going to talk to us about how her company has achieved this employee experience that's off the charts good. So if you've ever heard of the term NPS, Net Promoter Score, they use it in marketing and sales, like how well does this company known, or how easy is it to use? Like Apple's NPS score is always high, as an example. Like their customers just love them, and they rave about them. And so they have a pretty high score that's a standard for others. And then you look at eNPS, which is Employee Net Promoter Score. How do they feel about the company? And you look at how positive that is. And so Allie's company has one that's off the charts incredible, just like people are on fire about it. So we'll talk about some of the things they do around it to create that environment. And they're that session's brought to us by our friends over at Goody. So part of what they do is they use Goody for that. And Goody is going to be good enough. That's all the goods. They're going to be good enough to give away some other goodies later today, some other prizes for all of you. So stay plugged in, chime in this session. Their teams will be watching behind the scenes over here, and they're going to flag some people that are going to get some prizes. So chime in there on that, and we'll have some fun. All right. We get this queued up and ready to go for Allie Ford. And we got about an hour left of summer school today. Here we go. And welcome to HR Summer School. We are going through some great sessions, great speakers, great content so far. And I'm really excited to be here with Allie Ford. We're going to be talking about how we can use recognition, how we can use tools like that to connect with our culture, to support our people, to really create a vibrant environment where people can thrive at work. So Allie, so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here, Ben.
Absolutely. So before we get into some of the fun stuff we're going to be kicking around today in our conversation, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, I'm Allie Ford. I'm the VP of HR for Assembly Software. I've been with Assembly for a little over 2.5 years now, going on 3 years. And we are a software as a service company in the legal field. So our customers are lawyers, basically. Lawyers tend to not be very tech savvy, if I can say that. They're a little cloud adverse, if you will.
Yeah.
So we really want to work hard at leveraging those customers that are, and we have been doing that. Then they are fully embracing new technology, including AI, which we're releasing this week. And we're leveraging them to serve as really role models and references for those more reluctant firms that we have.
Interesting. So what does Allie like to do when she's not at work?
Well, I have 3 kids and a husband and a dog. And we have a boat, and it's getting to be boating season. So family and outdoors and just living every day presently as much as I can.
All right. Hey, plenty of kids over here as well. So I think everybody that's around you, oh yeah, there's, when we start tallying those things up, you're like, there's not a lot of extra free time to go around. And we do spend it together as a family, all good. Okay, wonderful. So one of the things that you talked about there that sort of tied into this is Assembly services and supports employers that are generally more conservative, right? Lawyers and attorneys are not known for being big adopters of technology. They're not known for being like super innovative and creative in a lot of things. But there are some ones you've been highlighted there that are some of your customers that are doing a good job of that. What does the culture look like at Assembly as a software company that serves those types of organizations? What does that look like?
Well, that's an interesting question. I will say we do have a very mixed segment of customers, if you will. I learned recently as I was interviewing and speaking to some candidates for different roles that had gone to law school, that they're actually starting to teach students about technology for law firms. So I do feel that is changing as we move forward, which I think we'll see more firms adopt this type of technology, which is great. But our culture at Assembly is incredible and something we're all very proud of here. We just completed our 2024 engagement survey, and I don't know if any of you out there use a measurement tool called an employee NPS. I know most software companies are familiar with an NPS score, but our eNPS is 107, which is really high and very rare to achieve. And it's something, again, we're all really proud of. We're a completely virtual company here. We have been for quite some time, really. We're 2 companies that merged together from 2 different locations, and we have a pretty distributed workforce anyway, but when COVID hit, it just got more so. So we really do need to leverage technology, be completely transparent with our metrics, and to make everyone feel united and we're all under the same roof at an office. And I think we do a really good job of that. And because our metrics are so transparent, because we're a company of 150 employees and not 10,000 employees, there's really no place you can hide here. Your work is visible. And because of that, we want to make sure it's also rewarded and recognized as well to keep that encouragement going.
You mentioned the combination of the merger of 2 different companies. I can imagine a lot of people listening into this out there in the audience that have been through one of those M&A actions or 2 different companies coming together, whatever, that sometimes the employee NPS, the sentiment after that would not be quite so high. Anything specific that you could say, like we could point back to, we did a really good job of like communicating, repairing people, like those sorts of things, anything that you can point back to that would signify that? Because Yeah, that's just not common that you hear in a company that's gone through something that can be like traumatic for people, that they're not sure about, what am I a job, or am I going to be safe after this, whatever else. Any thoughts there?
That's fair. And we just started measuring this. This is our second year in a row, and we went up from 72 last year, which was still quite high. But I'm sure if we measured that at the time we came together, I don't have that data, but I'm sure it wouldn't be as high as it is today. But with that said, I do still feel like we did a really great job bringing the two companies together. They were two on-prem legal case management software companies before, and the two leaders knew each other. They were friends with one another. They weren't fierce competitors because they had, all the lawyers were their customers. They were in different segments. So really blending the two companies together broadened our customer base. And the two leaders had a great respect for one another and folded into our company quite nicely. One of the leaders from Needles is still with us. He is a VP for our company. He handles all of our customer training and recordings and any kind of automated training we have. He puts that content together and records it. He's an excellent communicator and leader and well-respected in our company. And quite honestly, a lot of the people that worked for both Needles and Trial Work still work for us and have that legacy knowledge that's invaluable. And I think because we value that and respect that, it makes them feel valued and respected, obviously, in return.
Thank you for going back a little bit, because again, we hear a story of a company. I think I'm titling this session like an off the charts employee experience. And that's what I first heard of when I heard you throw that NPS score out. The NPS score was like, that's off the charts. Most companies couldn't even imagine that. And so I wanted you to show that that wasn't a magical overnight fairy dust moment. That was a lot of hard work, a lot of connection from our leadership, making sure that we're intentional about this. All those things led to where you are today. So I wanted to make sure we tapped on that. So thank you. So what are some of the challenges, some of the big priorities that you and the team are focusing on solving these days?
Well, as far as our leadership team and just an overall company goal, just to tie into merging those two technology companies, being on-prem, I mean, we want to migrate as many on-prem customers over to our cloud solution as we can. Obviously, that's something that's a priority. We don't want to support those tools indefinitely, right? So getting those more tech-adverse, cloud-adverse customers to come over to the cloud is key to a lot of what we're trying to do. And I mentioned earlier as well, we're launching our AI tool into our platform just this week. And unlike our competitors, our tool is built into our platform, where other companies have to leave the platform to use the AI tool. So it's going to be game changing for the legal field to have this tool.
I'm hearing you talk about these sides of the business, and it's kind of fun for me because so many times we hear HR leaders say, well, goodness, I wish I could be taken seriously. I wish my voice counted in those conversations. And you have this grasp of how you compete, where your company's going, some of those kind of big things. How do you see HR and some of the things that we can touch and support in our work tying into some of those big directions the company's going in? Like, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong here, it ties into the kinds of people you're hiring. You need people that understand AI, for example. It ties into how you're developing and training people. It ties into some of those kinds of things. What do you attribute that to? And how do you think that HR piece of the work you're doing as an HR leader ties in with some of the other big strategic directions that the company's going?
Well, those are all great questions that you're asking. If you're a leader in HR and don't understand or can't articulate the strategy of your company that you work for, you're doing something wrong. You can't be successful in your role if you don't know why your company's in business, where it came from, and where it's going. You can't hire, to your point, you can't hire the best people that are going to fit and grow well with your company. You can't support challenges or even have an understanding of challenges your employees might be facing to be able to support them in the right ways, right? So I feel like maybe this is a silly statement, but in a lot of ways, HR is the glue to everything. I mean, it touches every part of the company. And there's such an ability to have great influence in this role when you truly understand the strategy and can help support that in every way.
I don't think it's a silly statement at all. I think the audience probably will resonate well with them to be reminded that we have this unique touch into different areas of the business. And like, I kind of make the joke sometimes, listen, I love our friends in finance. I love our friends in marketing and other parts of the business. but they don't have a chance to touch people's lives and to connect with the business strategy, those individuals and the skills and the strengths they bring in the same kind of way, right? We see the motivation someone has, like we know this person is here and wants to be there on the org chart. Like, how do we help influence that and guide them in that direction, give them input and give them training? Like, we get the opportunity to have a front row seat there, not just doing some of the, again, not to pick on our friends across the aisle, but just we have a chance to do that and have that impact in a special kind of way. And that always excites me to hear that.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So
Makes being in HR quite rewarding.
it does. Yes. Again, we deal with, let's call it the less fun stuff too. Okay. We have days that we're like, I can't wait for the day to be over. But we also have the other side where we get to see the impact. And I sort of liken it to my wife, who's a teacher for 10 years in the elementary space, where she's like, that moment when the kid gets it and you see the light bulb come on, like, oh, I understand it. She's like, that is what I live for. And I feel like the same thing for us. We get a chance to live for those moments where we connect the people with the business strategy and at least the best outcomes for every single party involved there. Okay. So one of the things that we have not talked about yet. So our friends at Goody helped to connect us and made the introduction. And I appreciate them for doing that, because I've already enjoyed our conversation so far. How does Assembly use Goody to help connect with your people, to help support and serve them? How does that tie into this culture piece, all that good stuff?
Sure, I'm happy to share about that. I mentioned we use technology to keep us connected here at Assembly, and Goody is one of those pieces of technology that enables us to do that. One of the ways we support the culture that we have is by recognizing and rewarding our employees, right? And we do this all the time, really, in a lot of different ways. So we have a monthly shout out program. That's a peer-to-peer shout out. So anyone in the company at any time can nominate an employee for demonstrating a core value. And they do this through technology, through our HR tool, Rippling. And we have the ability for managers to recognize just outstanding performance at any given time as well. We recognize birthdays, work anniversaries. We create custom Goody stores. So we might be running, for example, a certain, I guess you could call it an internal promotion. We'll call it that. But say we're trying to achieve a certain goal of so many migrations. So right now we have something internally called our Migration Olympics for our product and migrations team, right? And we created different tiers, and in those tiers, we created custom stores, and every quarter there are winners, right? So we're able to constantly dangle that carrot, if you will, to keep people motivated and engaged in the goals that we're trying to achieve. And that Goody platform integrates with our HR tool, so it makes everything super scalable and efficient. So if we hire a new person in Rippling, they're automatically in Goody. If we part ways with an employee, that updates as well. All of the birthdays are in there, work anniversaries. You can auto gift and set up things automatically when people are onboarded or for a birthday. So you can almost just set things up and they take care of themselves for you once you get all the stores and if you have swag or you want to do certain things throughout the year, you can get that all set up. And then marketing leverages the tool as well. So our marketing team uses different swag stores for prospects or for just customers that have given referrals, things of that nature.
I'm thinking about this. Oftentimes when I think about recognition, we think about like the birthdays and the service awards and those things like that are fixed in time. But I like this combination of that piece of it. That's sort of a, hey, we remembered, we got you. It's happy birthday. Here's your thing. But also we're trying to drive this key behavior. And right now this is important to us as an organization. So we're going to remind you of that by putting some things in place that drive those behaviors with incentives and so on. So I think that's really a good call out there, that it's not just one or the other, but both of them come together. And it helps us to, thank goodness you're not using 3 or 4 tools to do this, using one tool that helps you to make all those kinds of recognition moments matter for everyone, your people. And it works, as you said, you're a distributed virtual company. It's not like you have to be in the office to make this happen. I used to have the bucket of gift cards in the corner of my office that when someone else won one, I'm like, oh gosh, now I got to mail it. I got to get that. Like, that was a pain. So thank goodness for those kind of things. Make it really simple, really easy to do. What sort of response do you get from the workforce, whether it's just overall or around some of those kind of things, like trying to drive certain behaviors? Do they latch onto that? Do they look forward to that? Is it driving those key behaviors you're looking for?
It is, and everybody likes different things, right? And like you had mentioned, we did the same thing for new hires. We had all these physical gift baskets or whatever you want to call it, and had to store them and sending them out, and that was just such a pain. And we don't have to do that anymore, thankfully. But there was also something just very impersonal about just sending a Visa gift card too, or an Amazon gift card. I mean, I have a drawer full of gift cards. I don't know about you, but like after a while, it seems impersonal. Now, you can send something really nice to someone that gets it all handed. Again, being the size company we have, I know Jane might really love yoga, and I know Bob really might like traveling. So I can send something more geared toward what they like, and they can exchange it for something else if they want, even if they do end up getting a gift card or whatever that might be. But the thought is personalized, right? So, and then if they do want to exchange it, there's so many options of gifts that they can look for that they can get for themselves. And the other thing I like about it too is there's something that for everyone that you want, but you wouldn't necessarily get for yourself, but it feels really special and really nice. So we've got a lot of positive feedback from people about the offering, the different offerings on the Goodie platform, and just our use of it in general.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. If Allie was getting a Goodie, what would Allie want to use it for?
I like all kinds of wellness and workout type of things.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
You had an answer ready. Okay, you had an answer ready to go. I was good. All right. I was thinking, I don't know. Some people are like, it's all about the coffee. It's all about but I've received a Goodie as well from someone else, and I had fun kind of going through. Ooh, like I don't care anything about those things, but this stuff really appeals to me. So that was fun to me to go through there. Tremendous. So as we're sort of getting close to wrapping up here, you have a bunch of your friends out here who are also doing the good and hard work of HR every single day. Any last words of wisdom, closing advice, anything that you would call out if they want to also have an incredible culture like Assembly Software?
Well, I think it all comes down to trusting your employees. I think people want to be trusted. It feels good to be trusted. And we hire people that we trust, right? We don't hire someone because we think we can't trust them. So I think we want to remember that, right? And we can't micromanage. We want to keep people engaged and excited, and we don't want to tell them how to make the sausage. It stifles ideas, right? So I think people want to do a good job. And I think when HR remembers that and rewards that and recognizes that, it proliferates, right? And people feel good, and people want other people to feel good. People feel proud of their work, and it just creates a great culture. If we're around looking at our back or questioning someone else or not sure if we can trust someone or micromanaging, that's not a good culture. I think we can all say we've worked in those cultures. I don't want any part of that. No. And we don't want any part of that at Assembly. So trust your people and recognize and reward them, and they'll be loyal to you and they'll work hard.
That reminds me of one of our partners that we've had to speak with us in the past. She's a CHRO at Baylor University. And one of the things that she says is, listen, your people are going to talk about your dinner table. And you're like, you may think, well, no, they don't. Yes, they will. And they'll either say good things or they'll say bad things, but they are going to talk about you with their family at the dinner table. And we get to influence what that is. Us, the managers that work with us, all those kinds of things. So that's my reminder out there. And that's kind of the thing that I tied back to for what you're sharing there. If they're the company, they shut down another one of my good ideas today as well. Like I didn't get a chance to speak up. My voice doesn't matter. That gets tiring and people don't stick around, especially the ones with the creative ideas that want to bring those forward. We stifle that and they'll move on to somewhere else who will listen. So tremendous. Allie, one of the things that you told me before is that you called yourself the feedback queen. How do you think, like we always often think as HR about getting feedback from others in the business, but how do we get feedback on how things are going from the workforce? What are some ways that you think we can do that?
Well, I've woven this into our business, day-to-day business. And it's actually a core value to create a culture of feedback that we have at Assembly. So right from that get-go, being one of our core values, and we live that through a lot of different ways. We have an anonymous suggestion box through our HR tool. We remind people of that. We have different surveys. So when we promote someone from within, or we have a brand new hire in a leadership role, we do 30, 60, 90-day feedback from their team. with our one-on-ones. That's all through our HR tool, our performance reviews. We do 360. We do training in the company. We do training about leadership and trust and creating a culture of feedback and different ways of doing that. And learning that we all can't be perfect and we all can't live in a vacuum either and think we're doing great without asking other people around us as well. So I love getting feedback. When I do one-on-ones with my employees, not only am I checking in with them, but I'm asking them how I'm doing. How am I doing for you? And what can I be doing differently? Okay. And just making that a regular thing. It's a conversation, continual. Yes. And then obviously when you get feedback, acting on it. If you don't do anything with it, then it's no good. People will stop giving you feedback after a while if you're not going to listen to it. So.
Yeah, we all learned that one, I think, in intro to psychology class. When you don't act on a behavior, it becomes extinct after a while. And that's one behavior we don't want them to stop doing. We want them to keep giving us input, giving us feedback. Sometimes it may not be pleasant in the moment, but if it's a helpful piece of advice or input that's going to help shape the future of the company or future product direction, like I always remind leaders, like, listen, all feedback isn't a negative thing. It could be an employee saying, I've got an idea. Can I share this? Would that be okay? And we have to be receptive to all kinds of feedback, not just the ones that we were kind of worried about, but every bit of them. So wonderful. Thank you. So I've gotten so much encouragement from this. I've really appreciated the conversation. If someone wants to connect with you, Allie, learn more about what you're up to, hear about any of your other ideas or ask you questions about how you're using Goody and other things, are you okay if they connect with you on LinkedIn?
Of course, I look forward to that.
All right, perfect. Thank you again for joining us, for spending some time here. Thank you to the Goody team for connecting us, and to all of you out there. Stay tuned for more HR Summer School coming right up. All right, so I enjoyed the conversation with Allie, and I was just telling George here a minute ago, because several people in the comments were like, hey, random acts of kindness, they were calling those out. And I was telling George about, there was this astronaut that was interviewed. And I said, listen, you and this whole team of people went up to the space station. You're in close quarters. I mean, working together, living together, people this close is hard.
Yeah.
And they had no real major arguments in that time. And they said, what's your secret? And he said, every single person on the staff, on the crew here, your first thing you have to think about every day is, what is a random act of kindness I can do anonymously for somebody else here? And so maybe it's George's turn to wash the dishes, but I get in there first and wash them before George even knows it. And just doing something small for people like that, again, they're in close quarters. We're not at least living together, working together like that. But it said that was just the grease in the gears, that when something inevitably came up that was a little bit of a frustration or something that could have become a point of contention, you knew already that person had spent the last few months, like working to try to serve you and take care of you. And so it was kind of a way to balance those scales a little bit. So I love that story. Anything else from Allie's share there that was a standout for you?
She said culture, like, 5+ times.
She said a culture.
Yeah. And then just a reminder, every year we get these themes and everybody starts saying, hey, these are the themes. So I love, some of the themes, but I think one that stuck out was glue. Yes. And there's some people that kind of understood why I put G.L.U.E. Yes. I'm looking for some acronyms. Yes. That's a good acronym. Like, that's glue. Some people saying, hey, what's the shirt going to say? You had a nice glue acronym. I had a glue acronym. So I said, genuine leaders are undeniably empathetic. And I think that's a big part of what HR does, is, as you've seen in the chat, like, we have to care. We have to see what's going on. And we are genuine in that approach. Yeah. Good leaders understand empathy as well. Yeah. So they can lead that way. Yeah. All those kind of things. Gotta love gotta love us. You gotta love you. There we go. Everyone. You gotta love you and everyone. We're throwing it out there. I would love to hear some glue analogies. Maybe that's a shirt. Please bring those in. This is his playtime. So you can't give George too much candy. It'll make him a little bit squirrely, but give him a little bit of the acronyms. It'll work out. So great. Thank you again, Allie. Thank you to the Goody team. We're working right now with the Goody team during this next session behind the scenes to pull in a couple of winners from that one. So stay tuned for that. And then we're going to roll into our very last session for today. So I am so excited. My good friend, have known her for quite some time now. Claire Stroh is going to be with us. She's going to talk about two different things. In the short time we got together, we're going to try to pack it all in. Employer branding, how you talk about your company and how you make that appealing
to keep your people. So it'll tie really well with what Allie was sharing, some good stuff there, as well as how you stand out as an employer. And then we're going to shift a little bit, and she's going to talk sort of like Grace did yesterday, a little bit to if you're out there, if you're early in your career, some things you should be doing to stand out, as well as if you are already established, here's how you give a helping hand up to people that are following you. So some really good takeaways there on the career side as well as we finish up the day. And we've got a ton of things to give away. We're so excited. We're building our list right now. So stay tuned for that shortly. Here we go with Claire. Family, I know that you are so excited to be here with us on our final day, and we've been talking to some incredible speakers and people that I respect in the space, and this next one is someone absolutely that fits that bill. So I've known Claire back when she was Claire Petrie, which seems like forever ago, maybe not so long ago, but Claire Stroh's here with us, and she talks about and cares a lot about how we can set ourselves apart as great employers and tell that story in a broader way. We're going to talk about some of those kind of things, as well as some of her advice for those of you who may be emerging professionals or emerging leaders in the field who are trying to make your mark on the space, trying to find your footing, all that good stuff. It's going to be a ton of fun. Claire, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thanks so much, Ben. I know we've been friends for at least a few years now, so I'm really excited to finally be included in the program. I've obviously been a fan and engaged for the past few years, so this is so fun.
Well, it's funny because I saw your video the other day. You were talking about some of the stuff that you're working on, things that you're excited about. You do updates on LinkedIn, and you had your summer school shirt on representing. And I was like, yes. So I love seeing that out there. And I love someone that's got a heart for lifting others up, which is what I think of when I think of you. And I was trying to think if our first time meeting probably was when we were like on the SHRM social media, blog squad, whatever else, all those years ago. So I'm like giving your whole bio for you. Before we get into the fun conversation, tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please.
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Claire Stroh. I'm currently based in Buffalo, New York. I've been in the HR field for about 12 years now, primarily with a talent acquisition focus, but I've been an HR manager in generalist capacity as well. Very active in the HR community. Please take a look at my profile. I love helping out with the People Slack channel, HR Hot Seat, and SHRM in my local chapter and things like that. So I'm always down to share like tips and resources and growing out my community. It's so much fun.
That's awesome. I was going to say, what do you do when you're not working, but like community is your thing, it sounds like. So a little bit of everything, finding a way to plug in, support, elevate, all that good stuff.
Yes.
So when I asked you the other day, we were talking, and I said, hey, what's the thing that you're most excited about? You said it's employer branding. It's talking about how we can do that well. And one of the things you mentioned stuck out to me because you said it's not just about attracting people in, but it's about retention as well. So would you talk about that for a little bit, what that means, how that fits in this bigger picture of all the things our friends in HR have to do day to day? Talk about that piece of that, if you don't mind.
Definitely. Yeah, I think we're all pretty familiar with, recruitment marketing is important. Make sure you're showcasing your brand to attract those ideal applicants. But I love focusing on the retention side. A lot of my HR friends, it's funny being someone who's been focused on the TA side of things for most of my career. I love recruiting and being on the phone all day and things like that. A lot of my HR friends in my network, recruiting is the least favorite part of their HR jobs, which I don't blame them. So they want to be more focused on retention so they can do less recruiting. And typically when I'm talking to them about, our talent goes across the street for another dollar, or things like that, I really like to engage with them in that conversation. Let's ask ourselves some good questions. Do people really just leave for more money? Like, why is it so easy for them to just be lured away? It could be they don't understand, the full value of the company's benefits package, or they haven't been really communicated to recently about the values in action or ways to get involved in the community that you might offer, or just the team dynamics or some things, need some work. So I just love working with folks on really starting with that mission, vision, values. Look internally. We've done a lot of that work at Lighthouse Technology Services as well, which is where I work as my 9-to-5 manager of HR and recruiting. And before we're like, well, what are our competitors doing? Like, why can other people recruit better than we can? We always turn internally, and I encourage like my clients and HR community to do so as well. And think about, again, your mission, vision, values. When was the last time as a leadership team you all got together and realigned on those? I used to work for a company that had 9 core values, which is fine. But if you're going to have that many, I remember as a new hire, no one explained them to me. They were posted on the wall in the hallway on a big poster, but I was like, I can't remember all of these. What do they mean? What are my goals or like behaviors to be, upholding these that I'm expected to do? And a lot of that was just left out. So anyways, I love to get together with my leadership team. We did this recently at Lighthouse. went over our mission, vision, values, took it a little bit of a step further and talked about our purpose, our value proposition, some feedback we're getting from like our clients and candidates about what they like about working with us. And it was a good reminder, of course, and it really re-energized us about what makes us unique, who we are, and informs us then of all those other HR related processes. So what makes you unique and your mission, vision, values should then inform your onboarding, how you reward and do performance management and things like that. So if you're an innovative company focused on customer service, those are 2 of your 9 core values or whatever, you should be incorporating some of those special aspects into your HR processes. So it's just much easier for your employees to feel that connection and stickiness to the company, less likely to go across the street for another dollar, because it's not just about the role, it's about the company and like how they feel connected to it. So yeah, that's my brief kind of overview of it. I know there's so many different directions we could go, but I just love working on that stuff.
The first thing I thought of when you shared that on the go across the street for another dollar, the first thing I thought of was there's a book that I read years ago that I still recommend because it's just a really great primer for managers on retention. It's called The Hidden Reasons Employees Leave, I believe. And they say, listen, when we look at all the data, I'm a research guy. We look at all the data, managers think like 7 out of 10 times it's due to the money. Actually, 7 out of 10 times it's due to something else. That manager relationship, the culture, the value that we provide as an employer overall, whether we have a mission, like you were saying, that's sticky, like all those kind of things tie into that. And the manager thinks, well, it's easy to just pawn it off and say, well, if Claire would have approved the bigger budget, then we could have kept that person over here, but she wouldn't do it. So they're gone. And when that person tactfully was like, oh yeah, it's a better opportunity to go over here. And they can't say my manager was a jerk and treated me terribly and I've got to leave this place before I, lose my sanity. So they can't say those things as they're walking out the door, but that's sometimes true. So all these other pieces you're talking about here are often more common reasons than just the pay piece. And managers want to just pawn it off on one and assume it's not the rest. If someone's hearing that, maybe for the first time and thinking through, well, we just had someone leave recently, like what could we have done? You talked about the importance of reframing your mission, reframing your values, getting close on those things, talking about that piece and that. But you also talked about gathering feedback, not just from your existing people, from outside the organization, like from key customers and stuff like that. Was kind of an interesting element there that I've not thought of, honestly. Any advice for others on like how to wrap in other voices beyond just doing the employee survey and looking at some of those kind of things for that, other ways to get feedback or inputs on what makes us unique or different as a company? Because I think that's a really powerful mechanism for helping to point that back to the employees and say, here's why you should be here.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And we ask like our current employees, of course, for feedback too. And those that are really bought into the mission or raise their hand or just active on social media and want to get more involved, we kind of pull those people in to get more people involved. So once we learn some stories, we're like, oh, maybe this is a common thing that we didn't know we were like this good at or what people really appreciate about working here. So we'll spotlight those people a little bit more on social media, which then helps on attraction and things like that, or even on the internal company intranet or blog or things like that. But yeah, a lot of our employees are the subject matter experts in HR. I'm not always talking to the clients every day, but they typically are as sales or just working with, we do IT managed services. So outsource like help desk and server monitoring and things like that. So they're talking to our clients all the time. We do ask them for feedback as well, have some surveys out there, but we have some various templates we like to use to ask folks to leave us like Google reviews or just to send us back feedback if they're not comfortable with that being something posted or they don't want to tie to their Google account or whatnot. But yeah, it's just kind of like built into our processes. So that's something else we like to set up too. It's just like marketing is tied so closely into so many aspects of your business. It should be. People think marketing's like externally, but it could be just for that internal communication, like feedback sharing and things like that too. But if you don't already, I hope I'm answering your question, but think about how you can build some of that feedback gathering just into your current processes. Maybe you're not asking just your current employees or your clients as much right now, just how it was about working with you. And a lot of times we get nice messages too. I know in HR, we keep our folder of like our brag folder. When we have a really bad day, we go in and read some of those messages of a time we like help folks, but we encourage our team to share those as well, because that's something that you might want to keep to yourself. That's great feedback, but letting our marketing manager know or one of your other HR colleagues know gives us, again, more insight into what's making you, so special. We love to celebrate you and hear about more of those things where that's a really interesting thing the client loved about you. Is that something we should train more people on, or would we like to get more feedback on that? So just encouraging folks to share those good news and like feedback pieces too, and get them comfortable with asking for it.
I'm stuck on the brag folder. Sorry, my brain's like, I get hung up on something and it's like one track. I call it my smile file, but the same
Smile
kind of thing.
file.
Like you tag something that's coming in, I use a little tag in my inbox or put it in the right folder. And
Love
when
it.
it's something that makes me smile because someone took the time to send something back, like I always flag those because, as you said, those days where things aren't maybe going as we all would hope that they would. HR has plenty of hard days. That's a good way to refresh yourself and remind yourself, like, this is the impact I am having. Today, it may not feel like it, but this is the impact I'm having on people. And this is how people feel ultimately, because if one person took the time to say that, there's probably lots more that feel it that just haven't yet shared that. So for anybody out there listening to us, you heard it from Claire, set up your little brag folder, set up your little smile file, whatever you want to call it, but have your little collection of those nice things that you get back that you can look at on those days that are tough, because I think it's a good reminder too for us overall that we've had sessions at the events this week on like mental health and well-being and burnout for HR and those kinds of things. And that's a good reminder that you do have value. There was actually one of our speakers earlier this morning actually shared that one of the things she does is she's like, I want to hold on to payroll because when we're doing so much stuff in HR, you can't see the result of what you do. You can't see the impact. She's like, I can tell when payroll's hit, that person got paid and I helped make that happen. So that's my sort of physical representation almost for her of what that means. Okay, excellent. So I want to come back to something else that I mentioned at the beginning that's important for you, a priority for you. And that's helping the next generation of HR leaders kind of find their footing, get ready for their role, springboard into excellence, all those kinds of things. If someone's listening in today and they are I'm going to give you two assignments here. If someone's a young professional stepping into that or trying to grow into that, any advice you'd give them for how to succeed at that? And then after that, we'll come back to it. And I want to ask you for advice for any of our friends who are more experienced in their career on ways they can help give a helping hand into that. So let's start with the young professional audience. We'll flip over to the people who are more established and give them a pointer or a tip or something like that on things that they could do to build community, just like you do.
Love this. Thank you. Oh, you might have to cut me off. This is definitely a soapbox topic for me as well. Yeah, I just love helping the future generation of HR leaders. When I was in college to get my HR concentration, I took 3 courses that were all so broad: culture, leadership. And I remember getting to my first HR internship and I was like, what the heck do I do on the job? My career services person knew I'd be a good fit for HR because I conducted a lot of interviews when I worked at the SPCA, my local animal shelter. I don't know if anyone here has adopted a pet. Usually you're met with somebody who's asking you some questions about your home life. Do you have other pets? Do you rent? Do you have breed restrictions? So I'd been interviewing people for years to match them with their new perfect furry family member. So luckily career services picked up on that. I was like, I think you'd be a good recruiter. And here I am 12 years later. But if it wasn't for that, I did not get a lot of coursework. So anyways, through my work on the SHRM EPAC for 4 years, the Emerging Professional Advisory Council, and my local chapter college relations role, we did some HR 101 programming so people can really dive into compensation 101, recruiting 101, training 101. Because it's like, what does someone in that role on the job do? We just don't get a lot of that. So one of my first tips, I guess, would be to attend events like this, dive into those programs that are offered, like in addition to your schooling, or if you are a recent graduate and just feel like you need to dive into a certain area you've noticed that your boss is asking you to focus in on, or it's going to be a daily task of yours. Just seek some of that extra knowledge. It's definitely out there. Again, whether it's through the SHRM Foundation Mentoring Program or just other programming that HR events and things are doing. Professional development will serve you well if you want to be successful and move up. I remember just starting in my career and being asked by people, I don't think they meant to sound that kind of condescending, but just, oh, you look like you're the age that you could be my daughter. What qualifies you to be here? Like, how did you get this job? So I remember really confidently having to come up with kind of like my elevator pitch on my education, my experience, the resources that I turn to. And professional development and networking has really helped me combat like that imposter complex, we like to call it. Because if I'm stuck in a networking conversation or just a relationship building moment or even an interview, if I get asked about something, I don't want to have to be like, yeah, I don't know anything about that. But by continually learning, attending events like this, talking to people in my network, I always have at least one little nugget I can pull from. And then just at least be able to confidently keep the conversation going. At least be like, here's what I do know. Am I on the right track? Is that how we do it here at this organization? Or, I know someone in my network I talked to about that. I'd be happy to dig in for more information. But just professional development always kept me going within my career and helped kind of separate me to gain that credibility as well. So that could be a whole other thing, gaining credibility. You don't need all the answers, but just do what you say you're going to do. Get back to people when they, come and approach you in HR, and just do your research and be prepared. It will really help you kind of move up and get that momentum from there.
I was telling someone the other day, I said, you don't know this about yourself, but when I started doing this kind of work, I watched you very carefully. I thought you had all the answers. I was just incredulous. Like, he always had an answer for everything. And then after a few months of just watching him very closely, trying to mimic some of the things he was doing, I'm like, he only has 7 answers, but he cycles them out and knows when he hears a cue from someone. Oh, I know how to bring that one in. And it looks like he's always prepared. And that was my sort of go-to thing. I said that I followed that approach, and that's how I started approaching data and research and everything else, because that's the way he did it. And it was so compelling to me. So I love your little comment there about find something new, be learning something new. There's a little nugget you can share. There's a little, be reading something, always have something to share in the moment, because even if it's not always like the exact thing they need at the moment, well, you know what? There's actually a piece I read the other day that tied into this, and here's at least what that had to share. And you always have something compelling. So there's some good tips and advice for our newbies. What about our friends who are more established in their careers? Any advice for them on how to be mentoring and giving a helping hand to those that are coming up?
Yes. And one of my favorite presentations that I love to do for chapters, and I'm going to be doing kind of a spotlight stage of it at SHRM 24, which I'm really excited about, is called Elevating and Uplifting the Next Generation of HR Leaders. And I always put a little spot in the end of, please still take these tips, even if they don't resonate with you. You likely know someone in your workplace who's trying to gain that credibility and learn and move up and things like that. And I'm at that spot in my career now. I'm really grateful to be in a mentor role. I've hired 3 folks on my team at Lighthouse and really love the responsibility of helping them grow and develop in their careers. So yeah, just kind of think of all those key things like gaining credibility, building relationships, and professional development. Those 3 things have really been the pillar of my success. So I just keep all those in mind as I'm managing folks. And it might be a new muscle that you're using. So I have quarterly reminders in my calendar to check in with them just on some of those items, making sure I'm forwarding events like this. I know you need your SHRM credits, so attend HR Summer School, stay up to date, network. There's going to be something new in there you learn that's going to help you in your role. And then just, continually give and ask for feedback again, too. So if you see them, trying to come prepared to a meeting, trying to make a suggestion or get comfortable using their voice in a meeting, provide feedback on that either way. Give them kudos. I know that was tough. You haven't led many meetings, great work. I've been in that situation, too. And here's what I've done, to get better. Or I always ask, I do have a piece of information I think might help you improve. Can I share it out with you? People usually are much more likely to take that better than if you just jump in with, here's what I think you should do better. So I try to do that, too, and say, maybe next time we could overcome or anticipate any objections we might have to overcome or questions we'll get during that meeting or things like that. So just think about, you got to a point in your career, and other people are just trying to do that too. And we're all better together. So it's rewarding, and succession planning and all those other technical HR things too.
Tremendous. I love it. I'm thinking back over some of the people who have influenced me in that same direction, right? And who were willing to give me an extra few minutes of input, or to do like you said and say, hey, can I give you a little bit of feedback that might help you next time, right? Versus just, let me tell you what you did wrong. There's some good way to do that. And I think that's great advice for anyone out there listening right now. Every one of us can do one of these 2 things. We're either trying to get a leg up, or we're going to be able to give someone a leg up in the work that they're doing in HR. And so I think there's some good stuff here for every single person. Claire, thank you for joining us. If someone wants to listen or follow you, wants to see some of the videos I was mentioning you post on LinkedIn, some of those kind of things, what's the best way to connect? Is it LinkedIn?
Yes, LinkedIn, not to toot my own horn, but I have a podcast. It's just called Claire Shares. I do 10-minute episodes on talent attraction and retention topics. So yeah, the episode you saw last week was on mission, vision, values for talent retention. And I always include a recommendation of the week in my episodes, and HR Summer School was my recommendation for, which is why I was wearing my shirt. So I'm glad that reached you. But yeah, LinkedIn and my website, as well as clairescoaching.com.
Thank you so much, Claire. Appreciate you for joining us, for
Thanks,
inspiring
Ben.
and encouraging all of us as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more Summer School coming right up. Okay. Goodness. Day 2, almost over. We've got some stuff to give away in a minute, but holy moly. I love Claire's call out there on the importance of mentoring. Last year, George was he's been gently pressuring me. Last year was shoved me off the chair. Let's do this mentoring thing. So we put the Summer School mentoring program in place. We had dozens of people that got paired, that were willing to communicate, to support each other in the community, and had all these incredible relationships built. Many of them that was talking to Carla Patton recently, and she was telling me that she still meets with her mentee on a regular basis, monthly. So importance of mentoring, lots of good people in the community. And if you want to be part of that, jump in. So Claire, thank you so much.
I love it, Claire. Yeah, it was, I love all the conversation of just connecting and that power of connectability. I remember growing up as a kid, flashback to George as a kid, growing up as a kid, back in the days before remotes were really cool. You had to go up to the TV and turn the knob.
You were the TV remote.
I was the TV remote. Yeah, my hands is used to doing this. And sometimes you had to get the knob to get the channel, right? It was a disconnect. And I always think about, when I'm listening to Claire, I think about that, keeping engaged and align the core values, the mission, more than just being on a statement on a wall, but having that cause behind it that employees can be connected with. I kind of make it kind of aligns with that TV, like there's some alignment there. You may be on the right channel, but maybe you got to work a little bit so that you can get that clarity and that signal. And then you got to live by it as well. You just can't say, hey, we're going to care for people and then not show up and care for others. It's important to say, hey, Ben, how you doing? And it's not just that hallway talk where, hey, how you doing? And you don't stop to say, how are you doing? And really be engaged. There's a few people yesterday from HR Summer School that messaged me and added me, and I appreciate all the people that's connected. One of the things I always do, I respond. I try to respond to 99.9%. Sometimes LinkedIn gets rid of after you go to the page. And I ask somebody, how's your day going? And they genuinely just say, hey, I don't know if you're ready for this. And they just let me into that door. And I say 100%, I appreciate the genuine, that trust and that vulnerability. But having that is so important in the company and with our leaderships to be genuine about what you say and then make that say in action.
Say it, live it, do it.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Glue it. I love all these glue analogies and acronyms. Y'all are blessing my heart.
We're enjoying this so much.
I'm enjoying them. So thank y'all.
Okay. So let's give some things away. So first up, we got some giveaways from our friends over at Goody. So let's do this first one here. So number one, if your name is not on the list on the next screen, take a screenshot of this. Okay. That's my heads up to you. Screenshot this because you can still go and get a $20 goodie to try out yourself. So wherever the screenshot happens to be, screenshot that one. You can go do that. So we grabbed 10 winners, and then tomorrow we're going to give away some as well from our team, our friends over at Goody. So really quickly, if your name is here on this list, Cecilia, Rachel, Wendy, Tiffany, Tracy, Christina, Aisha, Constance, Tiffany, and Joy, ping Rosario. Her email address is here on the screen. Again, screenshots, easiest way to remember that. And you can reach back out and get that confirmed, get that set up with them, and they'll take care of you with your prize. And our summer school family, of course, George said he loves giving things away. He loves giving my things away. I got to give some of his things away earlier. That was kind of fun. Yeah. So we're going to give away some stuff here really quickly for all of you who've been chimed in. We've been watching you stay connected in the chat and be participants here. So we're giving some things away here for all of you. So same kind of thing. Take a screenshot. If your name's here, congrats. And tomorrow we'll have chances to win other prizes like these and maybe even our grand prize, which is, I need a drum roll. I'm drumming over here silently and you can't hear it. A drum roll for an HR conference cruise. So George and I both went on the HR conference cruise. What was your thought, honestly?
It was a blast. I had a great time. It's, traveling while also networking and showing up at a beautiful place. We were at Heidi's in Jamaica. And then there was just a good group. We had over 100 people, the largest HR cruise that they had. And again, got to meet several, and not just Misha that was there, but there were several other handful of other HR Summer School alumni. So it was a great opportunity, great sessions, and good people. So Mike and his team does a wonderful job.
Yes, that's funny because I'm not like the self-promoter. So I get up there like, hey guys, so excited to be here on the cruise. And Mike's like, you got to tell them about summer school. So I had to tell the HR conference cruise audience about summer school and then vice versa. So we're telling y'all about the HR conference cruise. So it is what it sounds like. It's a conference on a cruise. Yeah. And for a price that you'd pay to go to some cities and to travel there and to get a hotel and everything else, like you get to be on a cruise and go somewhere tropical and amazing and get the conference wrapped into that. So it's a ton of fun. It doesn't interfere with the other fun stuff you could be doing on the cruise. So it's kind of a win on all fronts. And so George and I occasionally get there. Last year, we gave it away to Misha, our good friend, and I got to see a video of her. I didn't see the video until the other day. You posted it on Instagram or LinkedIn or
everywhere. It's
all the places,
awesome.
All the places on social, and shared the interview with George and Misha on the cruise, which was a ton of fun. So we'll be giving that away tomorrow. And we appreciate now our friends, our sponsors. They're helping to make the event possible, supporting us, supporting you and the community. Tomorrow we'll hear from our last two. We're going to hear from Sarah from Hi Bob about, I don't want to give away the punchline. So we'll hear from Sarah at Hi Bob on the importance of hiring and looking like the company that you want to represent out there when you're trying to attract candidates. And then we'll hear from Arnaud at Clear Company about some of the fun things they're doing, some of the bigger problems that employers are facing around thinking about skills, thinking about how all the pieces of the talent puzzle fit together, performance and learning and development and upskilling and succession, and those things that we think about sometimes as separate things and how they're sort of tied together. So looking forward to hearing from them tomorrow to wrap us up. George, I'm grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you, my friend. I appreciate you. And I love you.
Love you too, man.
We all want to be loved.
Appreciate you, George. Appreciate you, George. George will be reporting back from home base tomorrow, not here with me. So I'll be a little bit sadder tomorrow, but we'll try to have some fun. Tomorrow we'll be announcing our Unity Award winner for this year. There'll be a surprise to the community out there. So that's exciting. And we're also going to be sharing a little bit of a share from just the community interactions that we've had over the last year. We'll get some of you will see your own pictures there on screen as we're celebrating just the amazing people we get to meet out there in the world. And a reminder that George is going to be out in the world in a few weeks at SHRM. So we'll make sure and share that link again tomorrow if you want to go back and register for that, if you'll be at SHRM and want to say hello. So I appreciate you, appreciate every single one of you. We do both, and hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Go out there, be the glue that holds things together, and we'll catch you again tomorrow.
Stick together.